Hey, hello and welcome to the Video Game Dads podcast. This is episode 46.
Episode 46?
Yeah, welcome. Hey, how you doing? Driving your car? What else are you doing? Cleaning your house?
Laying down in bed,
yeah.
Trying to forget about work.
What else do people do when they listen to us?
maybe ditching work to listen to us.
Yeah, don't mess up. We are an independent. Every 3 weeks, we do one of these things for y'all. We are when three guys in a basement talk gaming, fatherhood, and everything in between. We are your hosts. I am Ben.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Michael.
Yeah, and Shane couldn't make it again tonight. Again, he's kind of started up his own business the last. He had all that family stuff go on that we all know very well, and then he's kind of been wanting to do something where his kids get old enough, and he's kind of been busy with that. So I think he said he was going to be with us the next episode, hopefully, because we're getting close to that Mo Game Con, aren't we?
We are.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. We are family friendly. We don't promise that there won't be any adult content, so there might be some earmuff moments, but for the most part, if they know what we're talking about, it's nothing that they haven't seen on the news or something like that. I don't know what to say. Where can you email us, Adam?
Videogamedads@yahoo.com.
I don't know why I was going to just look at you and call you Shane. Maybe
It's cool. I've been called worse.
And you can Facebook us at facebook.com/videogamedads. We also have a Twitter and an Instagram if that tickles your fancy too. But feel free to email us. We always love interacting with our fans, our listeners. But thank you for joining us for the big old 46. I went back and looked and listened to some of our episodes, 25. That didn't seem like too long ago, but that was a while ago. And we still every once in a while have those people who just found us recently and binged all of our episodes in 2 weeks. I still don't know how that's possible, but thanks, I guess, if you want to kind of keep listening. We still
motivates us to do it again.
Yeah, and quick plug for us, we still get a lot of our growth from word of mouth. So if you dig our show, please tell your friends, tell your coworkers,
Evangelize.
about us. Yes, evangelize the church of three guys in the Midwest talking about video games, whatever else we do,
everything in between.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit about what else we do. We have our patented Videogame Book Club coming up as per usual. Our handheld hello, and our we decided 5 episodes ago we were going to start getting in depth with our new segment. We're showing a new segment this time, guys.
That's right.
It's called In Depth with Dads. We were going to say going in depth with dads, but then that started to get a little bit too innuendo, don't you think?
Yeah, that's creepy.
So now it's just in depth with dads, where we talk about a console a little bit more in depth. What do you know? We don't make things too complicated with our
let's keep it simple.
Naming what our segments are going to be, and this episode we will be going over the Atari 2600.
Bleep, bleep,
dun dun dun.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. We'll see how this goes, and at the end of it, let us know what you think of it. But we figured, hey, let's get schooling. Let's dive deep into this 2600. Or actually, it's not even called the 2600. At least not when it came out. So for trivia night. You'll find that out shortly.
All the girls will be impressed with your Atari knowledge.
We'll also talk about a buddy of ours, friend of the show, Brett Weiss, his book that came out recently. We'll see him at the Mo Game Con coming up. We're kind of doing a review of his book this episode. Also what games we're playing, what we've picked up, what's going on with our lives and our wives and everything else. As per usual, that's on tap for this episode, and we'll also go through your emails since I know we didn't get to that last time. What do you guys say? How you been doing this hot summer? It's finally got some hot summer nights going.
Yeah, doing great.
Yeah, doing real well.
I'm already tired of this 90-degree weather, though.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, and it's we're not at least pregnant. My wife's officially at her halfway point with her pregnancy, so November, we got the other one coming, and I've been doing Craigslist-y stuff, getting rid of stuff and moving things around. That's fun.
Nesting.
Yeah. So we're moving.
Just call it what it is.
Yeah. So we're moving my office to the third bedroom. So we're just switching them because there's a little staircase thing. So having to sell some things, and I kind of forgot Yeah, the Craigslist having people come out of nowhere and buy your stuff. That's been pretty good.
Nice.
Cool. Have you had anybody show up yet and then offer you half of what you had agreed upon?
Luckily not, because I just kind of tell people that's not how I play. I'll when they do ask me like, hey, would you take any less? And then I tell them how much I'll take. And luckily I kind of make it clear. But yes, I know that's a thing. And
It's a big thing. Yeah.
Luckily I've avoided it because I already am prepared. I'm like, well, there's an ATM like half a mile away.
Yeah. My favorite is when they tell me they're just going to resell it, so they need to get it cheaper, and I'm like, oh, okay, then definitely no.
Yeah, thank you for making this easy.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not even going to keep it for yourself. It's not even, you just want to make more money. No, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, well, I could tell there was a dresser set that we sold, and it was like $60. So I'm like, yeah, I know what you're going to do with it. I just more need it out of the house, and I don't want to make it too cheap because then you get the people that come by when things are too cheap. If you make something like $10, $15, then you kind of get this like different type of people that kind of show up where you're like, and then they're not usually punctual. Like, well, whatever. Everybody, different strokes for different folks, but like, if people are going to spend $50, or at least people that show up reasonably on time, that's what I care about.
Yeah.
I'm just
you had any no-shows?
Luckily, no-shows recently. But I used to deal with that when I sold stuff that was cheaper. And now
it's not as bad when you're selling it out of your house, though, versus like meeting someone somewhere and then with them just not showing up. That's the worst.
I've done that before, and now I just don't meet people.
Right.
I'm like,
you learn fast.
Yep. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the fun life stuff I've been doing. No vacations. Yeah. Not a whole lot of other stuff. What do you say we just get started on this book club, huh, guys?
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's get going on our video game book club.
I'd like an Atari 2600 system, please, and everything that goes with it.
Everything? You sure want everything?
I want everything.
Now you get a new low price, up to $30 in rebate offers, and a free pack.
Is that everything?
It's not everything. You can get nearly 300 different cartridges.
300?
That's nothing.
It's something.
But it's not everything. Soon there'll be a voice module, trackball, remote control joysticks, and a computer keyboard.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's not everything.
It's not everything.
Soon there'll be educational games, too.
Is that everything?
That's everything. For now.
For now?
The Atari 2600.
Now get up to $30 in rebate offers, plus a free Pac-Man.
All right, so our video game book club brought to you by the Atari 2600.
The Atari 2600.
How freaking fitting was that?
The most powerful home console in the history of gaming
ever. I just love those old ads. They're freaking great. The the Atari was overshadowed, in the history of things, but it still was like the first console that people remember.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
say,
No,
like,
it was
you
a
have an
big deal.
Atari and whatever. Like, it definitely was like the first one that most people consider like the legit first console ever, even though obviously Nintendo was the one that kind of brought it to a different.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there are things before the Atari,
Yeah,
the
of course.
Fairchild F,
Yeah, and the Odyssey,
the
and stuff.
Magnafox Odyssey.
But those really that's really like for most people.
Yeah, but
obscure.
nobody remembers those.
No, not the layman's. But anyway, let's talk about our book club. Our video game book club is a segment where each episode we pick a game that may be overlooked, misunderstood, and most likely not in the top 15% of whatever system library. We will play it in between episodes and then discuss on the next episode, much like a book club. We encourage our listeners to submit suggestions for the video game book club for us to discuss. You don't have to stick with whatever console we're currently on. It could be whatever tickles your fancy. Just give a little spiel about why you're submitting it, and then we'll put it in our pool and then randomly pick it out to go along with the dad pick. So, of our dad pick and listener pick, what was our listener pick last episode, Adam?
It happens to be an Atari 2600 game.
And that, again, is just a coinkydink.
Well, we kind of chose the Atari 2600 after we made the pick. Yeah, but it still is kind of quinky-dink.
Sure.
So the first one is Ghost Manor for the Atari VCS/2600.
Nice. And our dad pick?
Our dad pick was Panzer Dragoon Orta.
Yeah, that's by you, right, Adam?
Yeah, that's my pick.
Nice.
Yeah, for the original Xbox.
The OG Xbox.
Yeah, a very good pick. What do you say? Should we get Ghost Manor
Yeah, let's do Ghost Manor.
out of the way? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so I have some stats here
Yeah.
for Ghost Manor. So
drop some knowledge on some
drop
Ghost
some,
Manor.
drop some knowledge on some Ghost Manor. So this game was released in 1983.
Nice.
Kind of late, yeah.
The year of my birth.
Yeah, the year after mine. But But it actually was a release for the 2600 and also the VIC-20 computer system.
Okay, the VIC-20.
Ever so popular.
Yeah, the old ever so popular VIC-20.
Yeah, that doesn't get much love.
And so one of the interesting, so this game was made by Xenox.
Yes.
Xonox.
Yeah.
Xenox.
Yeah, and honestly, probably the best Xenox game that they made, I would say. Me looking over some of the Xenox games. What do you know about Xenox?
I don't know. I'm thinking it must be Chuck Norris Sidekicks.
I think the name of it might be, but have you played that sucker?
No,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure your face will melt.
Yeah, it's not very good. But actually, this thing traditionally came out with being kind of like a double pack, a double cart.
Yeah, so it's
right?
one of those double ender carts
Nice.
that came out on Atari.
Yeah.
It's like 2 carts in one, and you flip it around,
Yeah.
and you can plug either side in.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to make
Is your head in the gutter? Or
Yep.
Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, I was going to
Okay.
give a really bad Requiem of the Dream, like.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
And I'm not going to. But again, this is what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, it's a funny looking cartridge. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. So you can, it's got 2 games on it, but unlike like a Nintendo game that had 2 games, like Mario
Sure.
Duck Hunt,
Should
where it had
select
like
and
a
swap.
menu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is no menu. You actually take the cartridge out and just flip it over and shove the other end of the cartridge in.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. So it came in 3 different configurations. So you could get Ghost Manor with Spike's Peak.
Yeah.
Goes
the traditional one.
Right.
Yeah, that's the traditional one. Ghost Manor.
Tell us
with-
about the chase variants there.
You could get it along with Chuck Norris Sidekicks.
That's the one to get right there.
Yeah. And you can also get it with Artillery Duel.
Artillery Duel, which, let's just face it, like Combat is probably the better game compared to that. I don't know.
Probably, yeah. Combat was one of my jams.
So, so Ghost Manor, I like it. What else you got on it, stat-wise? I think that's probably it. It's a
That's
2600
probably
game. It's a 2600 game.
Yeah. Surprisingly, that there's not a whole lot about Xenox.
It's a full like 2.5 kilobytes of butt kicking awesome. So I actually, when I first started playing this game, I was like, what is going on? You start out, I like the music. It's nice and spooky. Mm-hmm. You are either a boy or a girl. I think it defaults to a girl. And you start out in this graveyard and you chase this like ghost. And depending on how well you are at kind of chasing it for the first like 30 seconds or whatever, that determines how many extra like spears that you get for the second screen. Mm-hmm. So it's a very loosely based adventure game that, again, you think 2600. I think it's entertaining. I think it's moderately entertaining. I think it's pretty cool. So after you get these spikes, you go to this next screen, which is actually a little impressive. There's this like. It's a mummy, I guess, that can chop your head off, that kind of scrolls. You almost play this kind of asteroids. It's basically like you're at the bottom of the screen, and then you've got, not asteroids, what am I thinking? Space Invaders. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to shoot like a couple skulls, and the thing's moving back and forth. And depending on how well you did on the first screen determines on how many spears that you get for the second screen. Mm-hmm. And then you have to shoot all of the little minis, kind of a la Space Invaders, while not getting your head chopped off, I guess, by this.
So it's like rhythm, and you have to shoot the ghosts.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then if you shoot the all the little ghosts that are popping back and forth, left and right, and you still have spears left, you then get to move inside the mansion.
Right. Go up the stairs. Yeah.
Yes, and then when you get inside the mansion, you're basically on a single screen where you initially I didn't know you're supposed to get like little power ups. I just saw this really like weak like bar going across the screen left and right, which is evidently like a what is it the like a steamroller? There we go. It's a steamroller that if you get touched, it kills you and you got to start over. But basically, if you go up the stairs, then you get to the Dracula area. But I didn't know. I always got killed by the Dracula guy, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. 2600 game, it's hard to figure out.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, anyway, and then you have to kill the Dracula guy. But here's the pro tips for this game. The difficulty setting, which on the 2600, because there's no like menu system.
This is hilarious, actually.
What?
The difficulty setting,
Yes.
how to change the difficulty.
Yeah, the difficulty setting you have to change on the actual hardware, which actually makes this game a little more spooky. If you change it to a harder difficulty setting, when you're going through the steamroller, that screen actually is dark, and then you can't see the steamroller until there's lightning, which flashes, and then you could kind of see it.
Effects.
So that makes it kind of cool. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to not go up the stairs, and you're supposed to get in. There are these coffins, loosely based coffins. They look like blotches of a couch or something. And you're supposed to get power-ups from them, which are like crosses, crucifixes, or whatever.
Like little lights.
Yes, and those help boost your points and then help your strength, your hits that you will get on Dracula on the next screen. So, okay. So I'm telling that what's funny is this is one of the only book clubs we're ever going to get where I tell you the whole game and the entire strategy of the whole game in our segment, and it's still going to be a pretty stunted, small segment.
Yeah.
So you get these power-ups, you move on to Mr. Dracula, and then I had to look at a strat video to figure out how the heck you're supposed to be Dracula, because he basically comes out and he's like super overpowered, and you're supposed to like lure him into the corner and then shoot him up in the corner, and then you kind of cage him in this room. But you have to do it like perfectly. If you don't do it, because if you don't have all the crucifixes, your powers aren't strong enough to like get him to run into the wall. And then after you do that, you can then save your little Hans Christian Andersen little friend, and then you escape, and you have to. You've got like a time limit to get out of the mansion. It does have this little what is it called, hourglass?
Like a timer.
Yes, it has a timer hourglass, so you have to do this relatively quickly. But if you know what you're doing, I mean, you can beat the whole game in like 10 minutes. Right?
10 to 15.
Yeah. So again, 2600 game, but like for all intents and purposes, it's something that if like you had this game and you had to kind of figure it out, it's at least more in depth than, I don't know, half of the games on the system.
Oh, yeah.
What else do you guys think? I kind of explained I think I explained everything about this game.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of it? What did you guys think of the look, the sound, again?
Yeah, for a 2600 game, I thought it was actually pretty good with the multiple screens, and you could kind of follow what was going on, like going into different rooms by like changing the colors and everything. Some of those earlier 2600 games are really rough on, like even the movement of the guy. He moved pretty nice with the joystick. It was kind of difficult to follow what was going on.
Yeah,
I had to look up and see about the whole coffins and getting the weapons, because you wouldn't really know. It just looks like little blobs, and you wouldn't know there's actually like stuff to get in them.
I know. I thought it was
that's
too
the only,
easy. I should have probably known. Like maybe if we were gaming back then, we should have known. Like, oh, this is too easy. There obviously has to be something else you do.
Exactly. But yeah, it almost was kind of reminded me of like power, like the Jaws on the NES, where you have to kind of power your guy up before you can take down Jaws. It kind of had that similar kind of feel to it. That was just a little more obvious, maybe.
Yeah, where it was unique for the time, because it's sort of an early progression system. You gotta level up, get ready, all that kind of thing. And I mean, Atari, it fits nicely with other Atari 2600 adventure games, where it's sort of, part of it's the game, and then part of it's your imagination, So it depends. I mean, part of your enjoyment of the thing is you kind of getting into the concept and understanding the story and what it is that you're doing. And I mean, this is back in the day when you actually maybe had to read the manual just to be able to play the game and know what you're supposed to do.
And keep in mind, you do 4 things in this game, but that's usually 3 more things than video games of the time that you would do. Right? Asteroids.
Yeah,
you're shooting stuff.
Yeah, bad guy shooting.
But there is something that's nice about the simplicity, and in this game, there's only so much you can do with most 2600 games. But at least each objective that you do is very different. When you're out in the courtyard, kind of molesting this ghost or whatever you're doing, it's kind of like you're trying to hug him, and I don't understand why chasing a ghost would give you spears, but then again, I think that's part of our imagination, right?
That's part of the imagination.
Yeah, so you're kind of like trying to give this ghost a hug, and then you get spears, but then if you run out of the spears, you're done, and you try not to get decapitated. I think my favorite character is this like mummy that tries to cut your head off. I think he looks wonderful. I think he looks great. For a 2600 game, when you're working with like 6 colors of a palette.
Oh yeah. See, until you said that it was actually Dracula, I just thought it was a black ghost. Because that's what in my head when I was playing it, I didn't really look at the manual or anything, but I just thought there were white ghosts and then there were black ghosts, and then you just died instantly.
Yeah, this may actually be the first Castlevania game.
Yeah.
Could
The
be.
very first one.
Yeah, I think.
Might have given him inspiration.
Yeah, they should put this on that anthology that's going to come out there.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
No. It's so the game itself is pretty simple. It's it's not that expensive of a game. You can get it in just the cartridge form for a few bucks. But even still, it's like, I think maybe because it's a double ender, like retail wise, it goes for $6-7 when a lot of Atari games go for less. So
Yeah, you don't see those double-ended cartridges, or at least I don't,
Yeah.
very frequently.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about this game, with all the Atari 2600 games, there's so many like broken games that came out on 2600.
Oh, yeah.
This is one that isn't, and it's actually playable, which
Yeah.
is a nice surprise, and
Yeah.
so it validates the over $1 price.
yeah,
So,
yeah, and it comparable to you don't need any other peripherals to play this
Yeah.
thing. You just need the basic controller. And the music is nice. It gives you, like, right at the beginning, you're playing like a horror game, I guess. But it shouldn't keep you up at night. But I don't know. What if this used to freak people out? They didn't have Resident Evil back then. Maybe it was Ghost Manor.
I mean, the most famous 2600 horror game, at least to my memory,
Halloween?
is Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, both of which are actually pretty hard to find.
Yeah, or Haunted House too.
Yeah.
But Haunted House, I think, is a worse game. This is better than Haunted House, but I didn't play the others.
Yeah.
So let me read the back of the box. You guys
Sounds
ready?
good. Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Ghost Manor.
Let me brace.
Okay. Earmuff the kid so we don't get nightmares. JK, LOL. You stand in a lonely graveyard outside Ghost Manor. A friend is trapped inside. You must find your way to play some spooky movie. You're editing this time. Play some spooky movie.
I'll put some in there.
Put me in a voice changer too. No. You must find a way to enter the manor and rescue the prisoner through 5 game screens. Sorry, that's like the big.
Yeah. 5 was huge.
But beware, unfriendly ghosts lurk behind tombstones. Witches and goblins haunt the entryway, and demons and ghastly spirits may attack at any moment. It's very dark. Only brief flashes of lightning, and your search for the magical coffin. Remember, finding your friend is only half the game. You must then find a safe way out. Good luck. You'll need it. Yeah, I just kept going with it. It ends with good luck.
Atari had some
there you
good
go.
marketers, man. That's a good,
Yeah.
for what this is, that's a really
Yeah.
good synopsis.
Yeah.
I mean, plus a little embellishment.
Yeah, and it's got a nice action shot like they used to have, which is like one screenshot at the back, and you got the Ghost Manor, and you've got the scary things that you're shooting. I did notice though, like one of the things that you shoot looks like a fish bone or something like that. Like it just, a lot to the imagination as Ghost Manor. I would totally give this 2.5 baby bottles out of 5.
I'm gonna give it 2 point. No, I'll give it 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 2600 game.
Yeah,
so,
it's because it's a 20. I'm gonna go 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a little, because I played some really bad ones that are just god awful
That's
one screen
true.
games,
That's
and
true.
so for what it is, I'm gonna go a little
Yeah,
higher.
I think, I think there's a good 20, 30, 2600 games that are better than this one.
Yeah, I mean it's not like Space Invaders.
But there's
or anything
hundreds
like
that are not as great. So obviously there's some nostalgia there. If I would have played this as a kid, I would have dug it, and I'd probably give it a little more. But for what it is, it's cool. I'm glad that I was able to get past the first screen, because at the beginning I'm just I was trying to run away from the ghost, and then I died really quickly.
Yeah.
So once you kind of figure it out,
There's a learning curve for sure.
yeah, definitely. So pick it up if you find it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to the other book club pick. Adam, this is Panzer Dragoon Orta.
It is.
Now, while you're kind of looking up the stats, I remember this was supposed to originally. This was gonna be originally developed to start development. The aim was to be a Dreamcast game,
Oh, really?
but since the Dreamcast went the way of the dodo,
Yeah.
Sega said, "Hey, Xbox, hey over there at that college party, can you get me in?"
Yeah.
I actually remember this pretty distinctly whenever Sega started publishing games for other systems and just
I remember it too. Man,
this is so weird. There's
So
like a
weird.
Sega, especially on the Nintendo platform.
Sonic is on a.
I was like, what?
Sonic's
There's
on
Nintendo on the GameCube?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And then, it showed up on Xbox and they did Jet Grind Radio Future
Yeah.
and stuff that was Dreamcast, kind of Dreamcast
Shenmue
based.
2.
Yeah. Started showing up on the Xbox.
Yeah.
It's like, what parallel universe have I just entered into?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
It's all about the Benjamins.
I know. Poor Sega. I mean, yeah, they were mismanagement, a lot to blame, but dang it. If that PS2 would have taken another year or something like that.
Yeah, and I just axed the old Dreamcast.
Yeah. But
So-
tell us about this one.
So this one was developed by Smilebit and published by Sega, and it came out in Japan in December 19th of 2002, and North America January 12th of 2003, which is kind of an interesting time to launch a game like this right after Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, you would think you would try to hit it a little bit before Christmas, but and incidentally, it's not a super hard Xbox game to find or anything, but it's also not one that you find in every pile of Xbox games,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, any rate, it's
I don't come across it often at all.
But luckily not expensive.
No, it's not that expensive. It's I don't know what $20 or so for a copy. But
Oh, that's even gone up. It used to be about back when I was looking years ago, it was like a $9 game.
Yeah, I think it's gone up a little bit.
Okay.
yeah, but it if you think back to the old Panzer Dragoon games, if you've ever played any on the Saturn or anything like that, the ones on the Saturn are kind of like this alternate ancient history with dragons.
Right.
It's kind of like set sort of I won't say Game of Thrones, but kind of like Game of Thrones. You know, it's old school. It's meant to replicate like the ancient times or whatever. And the difference here is they were like, we're making a Panzer Dragoon for the future. And so this one like you're still on a dragon, but your dragon is like
half cyborg.
Yeah, it's like
No,
it's like Dragon 2.0.
Yeah.
And you're basically fighting against mechanized modern things.
Yeah.
So
So the genre game. Let's paint a picture for those that maybe didn't get to play this one.
sure. So it's like Star Fox kind of. So it's an on-rail shooter.
Right.
So your overall course, you can pan around, you can move up and down, you can move side to side, and you can also move your shooting reticle all 360 degrees around your dragon. But you're always going to end up going to the same spot, if that makes sense. So it's on rails, it's confined. You have movement, but it's confined movement, and you're always going to go the same direction.
Sure.
How about this as an analogy? Bumper bowling.
Yeah.
So you still, you got to still do some effort to bowl the dang thing, but you're not going to get to go out of bounds, but you still can mess up.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's enemies. The interesting thing about this, more so than, they had this some on the Saturn too, and definitely more so than like a Star Fox game.
Yeah.
There are things coming from in front of you, behind you, and to the sides of you.
Yes.
And so you really have to pay attention, and there's a radar, fortunately, that kind of tells you where all these things are coming in, but you're constantly flipping around, in front, in the back, to the sides,
It helps to replay these levels because I could see you can get pretty good about knowing what's
correct.
coming.
Yeah, you kind of part of the sort of the groove of the game is to memorize what enemies come after the next and from what direction and how you counteract all those enemies.
Yeah.
So it uses a lock-on system where you can shoot individual bullets like a Star Fox game, but it also has a lock-on system where you can lock on to multiple targets at the same time and basically shoot missiles at those.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of a combination of those two mechanics.
Star Fox meets Rez.
Yeah, Star Fox meets Rez, that you kind of couple those things together and progress your way through the levels. And then, you have your simple flying enemies on the ground, that kind of thing, your simple things. And then at the end of every level, you basically have a big boss fight.
Yeah.
And the boss fights tend to be kind of multifaceted. So it's, it's like a big ship, or it's something where you have to sort of in sequence accomplish these certain tasks to get to the next task on the boss. And the boss battles are fairly epic, I think,
Yeah.
And,
I like the music. The music makes that. Not to bogart your segue there, but like the music changes, which makes it a little more epic.
yeah, it is. Yeah, but the bosses are really huge, and like I said, they're multifaceted battles. So it's not like you just fight one boss and then you're done. You fight different characteristics of a boss, quote unquote, or different areas of the boss as you continue to go through. So it's kind of, the bosses are kind of like puzzles, and for lack of a better term, where you have to progress through them.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, and the game looks great and plays great to this day. Like it's still a solid, good game.
Yeah, we played it again just to refresh down in my basement with my little Xbox kiosk. Maybe I put that on Facebook or something. I'll take a picture
I
of that.
can't remember. Yeah,
I don't think so.
Maybe I'll do that.
We played it on the Dew box.
Yeah, we did
right.
on the Mountain Dew limited edition Xbox. That beautiful thing that you can drink enough soda to rot your teeth, and then you get that. I didn't do that. I just got it secondhand. But we talked about that. Boy, I don't know, 20 episodes ago.
Yeah.
He's our new dad.
I missed the Do commercials. Not to get off topic.
Yeah, I know.
No, I remember when the thing came out. It was Doritos. They were feeding the gamer stereotype. So it was all advertised on Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Did you hear? There's this thing that came out at E3, kind of. It's called Gamer Gummies.
I've not heard of this.
They're at 7-Eleven, which reminds me, I need to go to 7-Eleven and just pick these up. They are energy drink flavored gummies, and they're called Gamer Gummies, and they're like shape of controllers and stuff. They're really stupid. And why you would want like an energy drink flavored gummy, I don't know. But
I bet Shane's already got.
You need
some.
that extra juice for that boss fight at the end. You know, you get tired and then you just pop a gummy. You know,
Halo used to do that. You remember every time a new Halo game came out, like all of a sudden all the junk food had Master Chief all over it.
People bought it still.
Yeah.
And Code Red and
but okay, so back to the game. Yeah, it does. It looks really good. I really felt like the soundtrack was really, really good, and not just, I don't know how to describe it. It's not distracting. It just feels like
it's like a Star Wars movie. It's sort of this harmonic kind of symphony of.
Yeah, it's almost like the person who did the soundtrack.
It's like you don't pay attention to it until you pay attention to it.
Yeah, and then when you do, it almost feels disconnected, but not in a bad way. I think always music should be a compliment, and if you're thinking about the music or realize there's a huge score, it should just be kind of like this embellishment. That's the point of music with this, is not to overpower something. And I felt sometimes I'm like, oh man, this music's like really, really good. Like I felt like they used like 10 instruments for something that would have been fine for 6, but then I noticed it, and I felt like, oh, this is really good. I kind of want to listen to it more. And I felt sometimes the volume, which maybe we could change in the settings, but sometimes like the volume was too loud and then the sound effects were a little too high, so the mix was a little odd. But I still think it sounded like really, really good. And appropriate, and it kind of makes sense. It was kind of like a Japanese style game, right? We could talk about that. Like, there's a lot of Japanese voices yelling at you.
Yes, yeah. So so there are subtitles, but it retains all of the original Japanese voice acting. I don't know. I
like that.
I actually prefer that. Yeah. Whenever things are said in Japanese, it's like, oh, I better pay attention. Like this person sounds really serious. Not sure what's going on, but I think it demands my attention.
Yeah, I know, and there's the authenticity is good, because if they would have gotten some English dubs, they would have been terrible.
Oh, they would have been awful. They would have gotten the guy that did like
sailors are.
Yeah, exactly. They would have gotten the Shinmu crew.
I don't know why that is. That's always because they always want to get the English. They don't allow Sega of America to then like get the voiceover people. It has to be Sega of Japan who gets the actors. Maybe I should have done that.
Yeah, the story of the Shinmu voice actors, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do.
We're like the producer. Maybe did we talk about it in the past?
Maybe, but go ahead.
We're like the producer of Shinmu over in Japan. He was just like, this American looks like our character.
Yep.
Or she looks like our character. They'll be the voice actor.
Yep.
And so they just hired people who didn't have any voice acting experience at all, on the basis of they kind of look like the characters in the game.
Yeah.
And so that's how you ended up with the wonderful voice acting that is Shinmu.
If that story intrigues you and you want to know more, there's a podcast called The Dreamcast Junkyard, and they interviewed these guys, and a friend of the show, Adam Koralik, also like talked to them, and he knew the whole story, and he got to hear everything, and that's completely it. They did
it's all like block of wood acting. It's really nice. Shinmu, I mean, if you want to go back to like fantastic voice acting, I always think of Shinmu or the original Resident Evil.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't get much better than either one of those two games.
Yeah, what was it? The Master of Unlocking.
Here is a lockpick. Since you are the master of unlocking locks.
Yeah.
I still need to pick that up. If I find it, well, now it's gone up in price. But the original Resident Evil for Saturn, that's the one game.
Oh yeah, that's kind of expensive now. It's probably an $80 game now.
And I wonder if that's why that was the one game I didn't get back from my friend. Maybe the brother looked it up and held on to it. Maybe it's still in the basement. I don't know. I'll have to ask. But unfortunately, that's the one game I didn't get back from my old collection. We'll see. Yeah, I think 3 Mo Game Cons I should have bought it because I think it was like 55 or something. Now it's more, right? Isn't it
I think it's like 80 or 90 bucks now.
Dang it. No thanks. But still, I remember like the cover art was awesome on that one too. The big long box and stuff. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little. It is. Luckily, it has some difficulty settings.
Yeah.
If you haven't played a game like this before.
It actually takes a little while to get used to it, yes. And it's one of those where you're seeing the character in front of the camera, and then the camera rotates 350, so you can have center controls, inverted controls. You can invert right, left, up, down, and so depending on how your brain works, when you first pick up the game, you're probably going to have to change something on the settings. It's the same trouble I have when I play like Ace Combat. Or something like that. I'm always like, oh, that should move left and it's moving right, or that should go up instead of down.
Yeah.
See, and I'm different with like flying games. I need it inverted, but then but for first-person shooters, I can't do it.
Yeah, I always have to think of like, okay, I'm the camera.
Yeah. Or like my head, the top of my head's the camera. I think of it that way. Like if you put your thumb on the top of my head and you tilt me back, then I look up, and you tilt me forward, and then I look down.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird how you have to conceptualize that, because every time I play one of these, I have to think, okay, I'm the thing or I'm the camera.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it always takes me a little bit to get to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the control, the control's not bad. It's just you got to get it to where you feel comfortable with it, and then it starts to make sense. But the control's nice and fluid. There's no hiccups. There's no real slowdown. There's a lot of things going on screen at the same time. Mm-hmm. And for a 3D game of this vintage, it just plays and looks really good.
Oh yeah,
and it's still. It's kind of epic, but at the same time, it's still sort of accessible and fast and arcadey, like you would expect a good Sega game to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I love, the fact that it's on the original Xbox keeps it probably at a price point that's easy to get. And yeah, you could still, you can find it in a lot and probably save yourself some money if you're a thrifty shopper. I assume Xbox lots are still pretty cheap. Like eBay, you can get Xbox lots for like next to nothing. And then usually if you get 30 games or so, there's a good chance you might get something like this in it.
Yeah, no, I never have. Just from a collector's perspective, I've never really quite figured Xbox out. And there are Xbox collectors out there.
Yeah, definitely.
But, and I know some rabid Xbox collectors actually, but for some reason, Xbox has never been. It's always been relatively easy to collect, and
there's still some. Futurama.
Oh yeah, there are some that are hard to come by, but my point is just overall, they're cheap. It's a cheap, easy system to collect for.
Yeah,
it just is. But I don't know why that is. I don't know what was different about Xbox players back in the day versus some of the others that cling to them a little bit more. Nintendo guys in particular.
I think it's because you don't have the brand loyalty because it was new.
Or right? Maybe.
Well, because Xbox was
and everybody that bought an Xbox originally was not a brand loyalist by definition. Right? Sure. It was a new brand.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also it was the last to the party. And really, the only way that thing worked was kind of on a whim. There's a few people like Seabiscuit, Seabisc Black. Like, there's a few people who developed it. Like, even the story behind the Xbox development. That's why whenever we get to do that, when we dive deep into the Xbox on a future episode, the way that got thrown together was just super interesting. And then the fact how I
just remember there were rumors like Microsoft might be making a home console, and then boom, all of a sudden it was there.
Right.
And I remember when I very first heard of the Xbox way back in the day, thinking, it's a joke. That's not going to be a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when it came out, it felt a little like, well, I don't quite trust them. It feels a little. But then when we saw the kiosks and saw the system, I was like, oh, this looks pretty good.
Though, and this is.
It took Halo to sell it for me.
This is kind of bad to everybody's got their own biases or whatever, but But at the time that Xbox came out, I had started college and I had a new computer at the time, which was a decent gaming computer and everything else. But this was around the time of like Windows XP, Windows 98 had just been out, and then XP. And I think my computer maybe had Windows 98, but the thing used to crash. It was a new computer; it used to crash all the time, and I would get the blue screen of death.
Yep.
And this would happen like 2 or 3 times a week, and more often than not, it would happen when I was in the middle of writing a big research paper, or like when I didn't want it to crash is when it would crash. Like whenever I was the most vulnerable was when it would decide to die. And my biggest gripe about the Xbox at the time, I am not buying any video game console from the same freaking company that built this computer that has an operating system on it that crashes every time I look at it sideways. And that was my biggest beef with Xbox back in the day was because I hated Windows so bad. I hated Windows so bad that I actually went to Linux, when I was in college. And about halfway through college, I became a Linux guy.
And for me, it ended up being when I started seeing reviews that were getting different ratings on the Xbox and then getting higher ratings.
That
was something that IGN, Videogames.com started to do, and that I just took attention to that. Like, even though PS2 is what everybody had, I started noticing, like, oh, this thing has a breakaway cable. How many times when you're playing in your dorm does somebody, like, drunk walk in front of you and pull the cord out, or your dog or something? And it was like, oh, this has a breakaway cable. Just little things where, there's no memory card. I was like, why does this say I've got all this memory?
I know. I remember being bamboozled by the fact that it had a hard drive built into it.
And I used to save replays of like sports games and all this other stuff that would take up a lot of memory, and I still wouldn't touch the internal memory, like getting to the close of maxing it out.
I don't remember anyone ever doing that.
Yeah, I think what was it, a 10 gig or something? I guess we need to save this for the Xbox.
Yeah, we need to save it.
Yeah, but I remember being like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean it's got a hard drive in there? That's like a computer thing.
Yeah. Oh, in fact, you could download your CDs and your music to it and stuff. That was just blew my mind at the time. But anyway, so Panzer Dragoon Orta. Wasn't this the last game of the series?
Yeah, I think so. But interestingly,
E3.
E3. I picked this before it was actually even announced. But they're actually doing a remake of the original Panzer Dragoon for the Switcheroo.
Yeah.
That actually, they haven't released much of footage of it or anything. I suppose it's still fairly early, but it looks legit pretty cool.
Yeah.
It'll probably be really good, I bet.
Yeah.
So the original is also an unlockable in this game, which I never got to do. I actually didn't look up how to do this. Did either of you guys?
No.
Okay. So you could actually play the original. I don't know if you have to beat this or beat it on hard or just put in a code. That was something on my bucket list to do just to see how it ran. But I hear it runs fine. Again, for a Saturn game, that's quite interesting because the emulation of the Saturn... That is why Saturn prices are high and will continue to be until some of these kind of different kind of consoles for the elitists and stuff kind of come out, and maybe there's a way to make these things more accessible. But the Saturn is kind of the Saturn, and you're kind of stuck with it.
The Saturn is what it is, and it's its own thing. There's still a whole lot of games that are only Saturn games, nowhere else.
Yeah. But I do think I agree with you. The control is great. I like the fact that it's done in a different timeline. It kind of hops out. Panzer Dragoon, what is Saga's the expensive one, right?
Yeah.
And that one is pretty dang cool. I never owned that one. But what's funny is I almost did back in the day. I remember it being at Toys R Us and being $39.99.
Yeah,
and
I remember seeing it cheap back in the day too, but.
I ended up getting Enemy Zero.
Yeah, no, I remember I passed on a Panzer Dragoon a few years ago, or Saga, for like $200, and I was like, oh, that's way too expensive. And now it's like a $800 game or something.
It'll go back down. It's crazy, but it'll go back down. I just think it's as soon as it gets a sniff of being remade, it's going to go to $100.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, or at least the rumor, I don't know that Sega's ever actually confirmed it or not, but the rumor is that the actual source code for Saga was lost, and so they can't they can't actually. They could remake it, but it would have to be a full remake from ground up. The original source code doesn't exist.
Yep.
So they can't reformat it. They can't up the visuals. They can't.
They just lost it, I guess.
Yeah. Like basically, Sega didn't save. It was on a. Somebody's hard drive or something that got wiped back in the day. So, the actual source code for that game no longer is a thing. It doesn't exist anywhere.
Crazy.
You would have to kind of yeah, you can't really rip it. Again, I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
no,
you're
because the
just
creator
screwed.
tools and everything are all gone. So,
Yeah.
so the only thing that exists is the actual, ROM of the game, not any of the things that went around making it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, I don't know. Let us know if you played Panzer Dragoon Saga. I've heard wonderful things.
Yeah, everybody loves it. I don't know if it's more of an issue if it's actually that good versus.
Yeah.
Versus people just it's rare and it's expensive, therefore it's good.
I watched a couple. I watched a couple
15
reviews,
discs
and I do
of
say,
FMV.
the fact that it is kind of like an adventure RPG, and you get to kind of stop and get out of your dragon and move around. Like I have heard that it's probably a little of both. That if they would have found if there was a way this was remade a few times, it wouldn't be as popular. But I think it also
looks cool. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not dogging it. I just wonder how much of the fluff comes from the rarity.
And I mean, I wouldn't be the first to play it because I don't have the time for it. I
Yeah.
don't know if our audience does either. But if you used to play it back in the day and you love this game, let us know. Send us an email. What else you got on Panzer Dragoon Orta?
I got the back of the box.
Yeah,
right here.
read a little.
All right, so it's kind of a short
sell
back of
it.
the box. It's mostly artwork on the back, and they're just trying to show off how cool a game it looks, I suppose. But it says years ago, a legacy was born that ruled the skies, as the world is once again engulfed with flames of war.
Ooh.
You must become mankind's only hope. Take control of a powerful dragon and annihilate the legion of enemies.
Anemones.
Anemones that
Finding
seek to
Nemo.
destroy.
Deep cut.
Anemone. That seek only to destroy you. Use strategic positioning, multiple dragon forms, and furious berserk attack to overcome insurmountable odds and become master of your destiny once more.
Nice. Oh,
Solid.
Yeah. I mean, that's nice and not specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah. I like this a lot. I'm gonna go 4.25.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 4.75.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna go straight 4.
Okay. Yeah.
Straight 4.
Yeah, I think you have to be okay with the fact that some people don't like this type of game where you don't have full
I'm a sucker
control.
for on-rail shooters.
Yeah, I like
them
them too.
too.
Personally.
Yeah, I like it too.
Admittedly.
I almost just switch. I'm just going to go 4.5 because it doesn't do anything wrong. I just think the genre will have some of its limitations. Maybe that's why Saga is so beloved. But I think it's a great game. Pick it up, especially for how cheap it is.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, for lack of a better thing, it almost feels like a rhythm game, like a musical rhythm game.
Yeah,
to
to an extent. Yeah.
I don't know,
But
it's
still,
a
I
fun
feel
game.
like people who like shooters would really like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
game.
I
I
mean,
think it's $30 complete, 15 to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
and
I've
like I
seen,
said,
so.
you can find it in lots and get it for probably less than $10 because no one's looking at these things, and the people who wanted this game probably already collected for it.
Yeah, and I should have looked this up before the podcast, but I want to say this is one of them that supports like the 1080 progressive scan, blah blah blah. I think it's one of them with the high resolution output mode on Xbox. But don't quote me on it.
Yeah. So let us know what you think. Those are our Video Game Book Club picks from our dad and our listener. Let's move on. So we did our randomizer just now during the break. We had our listener pick. I'm so sorry. So we're still doing the randomizer. I have been really bad, I'll be honest, about putting the videos up on YouTube, showing our little thing, that 15-30 second deal, like the last 4 or 5 episodes. I have the video on my phone. Maybe I'll just put them all up all at once. We didn't video this last one. But we did get a listener pick. We put it in our randomizer, and maybe I'll put them up there. I don't know when. Sorry, guys. Again, it's take it or leave it when you got dads. It's like I do the video, putting it on the YouTubes and all the other stuff. Just know that we do it legit now. We don't put it in a binary moded randomizer. It's in a physical form.
Analog. It's analog.
Yeah, it's in an analog form. So what was our listener pick there, Adam?
Lost in Shadow for the mighty Wii.
For the Wii by Joachim from Zurich. Our listener from Zurich,
Nice.
Switzerland. Put in Lost in
Is it
Shadow.
Zurich in Germany? Or is that Switzerland?
No, it's
He's
Switzerland.
right. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was born in this country.
Yeah, my European anatomy is not so hot.
That's
Sorry,
right, yeah.
Europe.
Yeah, Zurich is the
It
biggest
sounds like kind of German.
biggest city in Switzerland, and they speak German in most of Switzerland.
Yeah.
So there you
Okay,
go.
maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So that is our listener pick. And now moving on to the dad pick, 'tis my turn for the mighty Xbox.
What do you got, Ben?
Okay, so this took a little bit because I really like the Xbox. I've got a few games. I was thinking like Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast is really good. They got a bunch of the Guy game. Just kidding, I wouldn't pick that. They've got some. I got really close. I was thinking Armed and Dangerous. That's another really good one. The other kind of weird, like Crimson Skies, is to whatever Metal Arm. Some of these are multi-platform. We still pick sometimes some multi-platform for our picks, but I feel especially with the Xbox, it's really good to kind of pick exclusives just due to the kind of way that library exists in itself. So, our pick for episode 47, our dad pick is going to be Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse.
Nice.
Oh, nice play on words there.
Yeah. I remember when this thing came out, there's a lot of ads coming out. His quest is you are playing the bad guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Where you're the zombie, but it's not just like your evil zombie in World War Z running real fast. This thing has a lot of character to it. So it's a pretty sought after game. It's kind of expensive. Came out like 15 years ago. I don't know how much it goes for now, but it's really obscure. It's a real funny game. But it gets some good praise. I haven't played a ton of it, so I'm excited to do it. So Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse, and Lost in Shadow for the Wii. Very two different games here. We kind of spread the spectrum.
I'm actually really
here.
excited about Lost in Shadow. I think that's going to be a good one.
So that'll be our book club picks for next episode. Okay, now's the time for a new segment, In Depth with Dads.
Oh, yeah.
For our inaugural.
Everyone knew what you meant.
You almost got it. It's a good try.
Inaugural system that we were going to talk about will be the Atari 2600. Yeah, I thought this was a good one to start out on. This is... it's one that, there's not a huge history there, but there's definitely some interesting things. I think in our research, we found that there's some things that you all might enjoy learning about. So that's the whole point of this, is just to kind of gain some knowledge. Try not to talk over your head. We could get really in depth with all the bytes and the kilobytes, or what were we talking about earlier? The gigabytes,
the
versus
binary
kilobytes.
terms.
Maybe that is interesting, but the fact that even memory in this thing is done in a different way that we're used to for our video games here. But we thought the Atari, specifically the first popular Atari console, the 2600, would be what we talk about, huh?
Yeah.
So for the most part, the first thing that I noticed is really, we call this thing the Atari 2600, but as you guys know, and some of you might know, this is really the Atari VCS, right?
Video computer system.
The video computer system. And the coined term 2600 actually didn't come out till the 5200 came out. And then they went just so then that way they can call it something, because we didn't have this back in the day.
They were just
we
Ataris.
didn't have a 1 and a 2 and a 3. Well, actually we did have it. They started to do 1 and 2s, but it was just it was the Atari.
The Atari game, yeah.
There wasn't this thought that we would have a generational console and this kind of thing, because technically this was quasi the second generation, where you think first generation is like the Magnavox and the dawn of video games as they were, but this is the first time it's like, no, we're going to make a box, not have all the games in the hardware. This would be something where you would actually have a software component. And that, Atari was planning on making all their games. I don't even think really the idea of having publishers make, it was kind of a pipe dream. It was a possibility, but it was more along the lines of, how can we make this without it getting stolen and copied?
Yeah,
There's no laws or anything in place
for
this.
And the idea on this, Nolan Bushnell, of course, was the founder of Atari, or the person who's the most credited. There were other people involved as well,
right?
But Nolan Bushnell is always the one that everybody thinks of, and they sold coin-op machines.
Ted Dabney is
Dabney, is the other main guy, but they made coin-op machines, primarily, the one that everybody thinks of as Pong.
Right.
The original Pong. And then they had the dedicated, home Pong consoles. I actually have two of those. The old original, Pong consoles.
Those were everywhere in the 70s.
And But the idea was when they sold those machines or those units, they were like one game. They were programmed to do one thing. And so, when you're talking like mid 70s, early to mid 70s is sort of when the microprocessors coming out, being developed. And so they sort of glommed onto the idea of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a single machine that that has a microprocessor and interchangeable cartridges that we can program individual games that do very different things from one another. Because like the Odyssey, the Odyssey had cartridges too, but the Odyssey primarily works on, it projects a couple of like square blocks of light, and then the cartridges basically just sort of change the shape and the size of the lights and the way that they move. But you're essentially dealing with the same thing. The Odyssey before this, and I have an Odyssey, but the games came with screen layovers, where you put them on the screen and you guide the little blocks through, and they're basically renditions of the same thing. But the idea with the Atari VCS was we're going to have a home console that you can do individual, very different software packages utilizing a microprocessor. And so that's kind of how all this got started. And so Bushnell and others shopped this idea around until the late 70s when they could actually get the head of steam built up to actually release the console, which occurred in 1977.
And do you guys know the code name of this console?
I do. It's named after his bike, but I can't remember the
Stella.
Yeah, Stella. That's right.
Yeah, the Stella. And that they had to shop this around, but also be a little secretive because they kind of thought like, hey, we might have the next big thing here.
Yep.
But also they knew this was kind of a copycat industry.
Yeah.
When they were doing these chipsets and everything, they had to make sure like, hey, you can only sell to us. Let's get some like kind of legal contracts in place so that we don't do all this work and spend millions of dollars on all this research and then have someone steal it, which was a thing. I mean, the Pong clone machines.
Oh yeah,
as you're saying.
Well, and even back at this point in time, it wasn't really clear on if you own the hardware. Was everybody? Did you own the rights to restrict other people from developing for that hardware? Were you the only person that could make software for it if it was your hardware? Like, so all this was uncharted territory back at the time.
Yeah.
Unexplored, waters.
They found out that anyone can make software for it.
If you read about old Atari, a lot of the history of old Atari is actually wrapped up in legal cases and lawsuits and things about publishing rights and hardware rights and how all of these things work. And in some ways that kind of contributed, in some ways to the demise of Atari. And I guess we'll get to that, momentarily, but 77, the thing launches and the original versions of the hardware were kind of the I always call them the Atari wood grain, but the things that people refer to as the 76ers, So there was a light version and a heavy version, and I actually had the heavy sixer when I was that was my first console was the heavy sixer. So it's the one that has the 6 switches on the front, the wood grain sides, and I remember hooking it to the TV with the little fork prong doohickeys. You had to have a screwdriver, to hook it to the back of your TV.
Yeah, these don't work too well if you have a modern TV, but you can use a coax if you get a little adapter.
There is an adapter.
The RF switch. The one thing though, before we get kind of into the production was when they were putting this together, they realized, we have to act pretty quickly because like you said, the microprocessors are going to be a thing. The Fairchild came out before. So technically, if you're saying who was first to do it, the Fairchild F kind of wins.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they knew they needed to get this thing out quickly. So I believe part of the company's assets were sold to like Time Warner or Warner. Yeah. And so then they were able to allocate another, it's like 6-figure or 3-figure million, no, that'd be more than 6 figures. Help me out here. Anyway, a lot of money, especially back then, in order to kind of get this thing fast-tracked and made. And then it came out in 77, fall of 1977. And like you said, it was first distributed on the West Coast. The heavy Atari, known as the Sixer, right? And a way to differentiate this to tell if you have it or not, it's heavy. It's as heavy as a VCR.
It's the heavy, thick plastic.
The sides of it are kind of thicker. So if you see you can still have 6 switches and it be not the more expensive side.
Yeah, and I think I was reading that the actual heavy sixer was the one that was manufactured sort of by hand, one by one in the United States and in California. and then the lighter version is when they switched production over to Hong Kong.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they had to do that to save costs, which makes sense because it cost them, I believe, like $70. Well, initially it cost them about $100 to make it in that money, and they sold it for $200.
Yeah.
And then it ended up costing them maybe $50-$60 per.
Yeah.
And they sold them for what, $199?
$199 a pop.
We were talking $199 in today's money is $823.
Yeah.
So quite a bit for a system. People complain about that $500 Xbox or whatever,
Yeah.
but
It's a tough sell. Think about it. It's like, oh, I have to buy this, but then you get all these other games that were about $20 a pop.
that's true.
Yeah.
Adding the games.
Yeah, and it came packaged originally with both controllers, and of course the original Atari controller was the one joystick with the one button.
And then also came with paddles,
yeah,
too.
it also came with 2 paddles.
Which kind of separated itself out from the Fairchild a little bit in the type of peripherals that it kind of came with.
Yeah, it was the original Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit about the hardware, and then I know, Michael, you're going to talk a little bit about the peripherals, which is quite interesting. We kind of said there was the six button variants. There was the 4 button variants. There was this other one that was called the Darth Vader
The
model,
Vader, yeah, that's the all black.
which is all black, which
Yeah.
was the one that came out a lot later. This
That's
was
82.
like 19.
Yeah, 82.
Oh, that.
I think it was 82.
Oh,
that the Vader
I was
came out.
thinking,
or maybe it was 80. But
Oh, I heard the Vader was a lot later in the system's life, like 87, 88, 89. Like it was
was it that late?
Yeah, and it was before.
I mean, there was the Junior, the Black Junior.
yeah,
that
the
came out,
junior.
right?
Yeah, the junior. I think was like 1990 to 92, from what I found out. And the junior was produced by the company that ended up buying Atari. What was that again? That was. It wasn't.
Was it?
Sears.
It's not Hasbro.
No.
Is it? No, Time Warner. No, Time Warner sold them.
Well, I'll look that up before we get done with this segment
Yeah.
to make sure we clarify. It's just funny. There's a lot of different things here because, like what we were saying earlier, the hardware, Sears. So Sears made the telegames.
Yeah, so Atari had the Sears version. It was all OEM, regular
Real
Atari
stuff,
stuff.
yeah.
But it went by the telegames logo.
And what I'm thinking is the way this worked was this was all on the up and up. And I think what Sears did was Sears struck a deal with Atari. There's not the specifics we don't know about, but it was kind of like, hey, we'll give you this, but probably Atari ended up getting a cut, maybe $20 a system, something like that, where Sears could produce it. It was just a way for Atari to make more money. But again, this is just kind of back in the day where all this stuff was just paving new ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Hasbro who bought
It was Hasbro.
Yeah.
The interesting thing too about like a lot of the Atari games is there'll be 2 versions. There will be the Atari branded version, and then there'll also be the identical game, but it's Telegames branded version. So a lot of the releases that are quote unquote first party releases, you have 2 versions, Telegames and regular version. And even the hardware, there's a Telegames version of the hardware. Even the Pong consoles before the Atari. And I have one of each in my collection. I've got a Telegames version and an Atari, Pong. And they're the same thing, just the logos are different. But exact same hardware.
Yeah, you're right. It was 82 when the Vader version kind of came out, which I think does look pretty cool.
Yeah.
And depending on what region you're in, it could get quite expensive. Like I have a buddy who's in Australia, and he says like if you get an all black Atari, that thing will cost you as much as like a full size arcade or something, like $300
Wow.
something like that.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot of these pretty inexpensively. There was another kind of all black one that was sold in Japan. I don't know. I think Atari just did really, really well in this market. You can find a few different models out there, but if you see one at a garage sale that's pretty heavy, and also they hold up pretty well for being in a box, sometimes 30 plus years, and super dusty. But do know that if you don't have the original RF switcher, that most of those things are pretty junky now. You can buy a simple kind of Radio Shack $3 part because you'll find that it's got almost like a
Radio Shack.
yeah.
Good luck finding
place.
that. Yeah.
Just meaning how like easy a part it is to find. You can find it like online for $2 or $3 or have it sent from Amazon or any kind of like Best Buy might even have it, to be honest with you. But it turns the little it almost looks like an analog like video kind of plug, but it wouldn't work if you tried to plug it into a modern TV. But that way you can at least put it into where your cable coax can play, and you can play it on a modern TV relatively easily, and then you can bypass the whole RF switch. I wish we would have had that back in the dang day, but
Yeah.
c'est la vie. Michael, what do you got for us as far as you got? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you. So when the Atari 2600 did launch, it initially came with Combat in there, and then later Pac-Man. So once Pac-Man came out,
Combat would be the one you'd want. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of the initial launch titles, Combat was probably the best game. It also came out with it launched Air Sea Battle. Basic Math sounds like a real fun game there.
Awesome.
Blackjack. I said Combat. Indy 500, which came with the paddle, which was kind of cool because you could use it as a racing controller.
Yeah, and the paddle was kind of like it was a joystick. It was like an early joystick turny. It was like a steering wheel.
Yeah, it was kind of like a mini steering wheel. But Starship, Street Racer, a game called Surround, and Video Olympics.
Yeah.
So none of the huge titles other than maybe Combat.
Yeah.
That kind of came a little bit later, I guess.
Yeah. Combat was that was my favorite game, way back in the day. And if you find a pile of Atari games, there's always a Combat.
Oh
in
yeah.
There. Yeah.
Oh, and sorry, we talked about the switches on there. I didn't talk about what they do. You can there's actually a switch there that can you can give preference to what type of TV you have, color or black and white.
Yeah.
So it'll work correctly for that. That's just crazy to think, but it is true. About when it came out, not most people had a color TV.
Yeah.
And then also, since this was before a time when you could actually have a select screen or change anything in the game, you had to change it via these switches. So you're, like we alluded to
there was
earlier,
game mode,
the game mode
difficulty.
and the difficulty, and even sometimes how the whole game would be played or how the maps would work. The Atari was also kind of the first system where the thought of this game moves beyond a screen, right?
Yeah.
You move to one side of the screen, and now there's a different area. Pitfall was the big one there, where people kind of got that.
Yeah, I think
concept.
it was Adventure the first one, I believe. I think that was the first multi-screen kind of adventure game.
Yeah, Pitfall is the one that everybody thinks of as being like the perfection of platforming, probably on Atari. But then later games like Hero, is probably the one that pushed it the furthest.
Yeah, or Pitfall 2. Pitfall 2 came out pretty late, and that one is better than Pitfall 1. And it's and also the size of it too. It was about 10, 15 times the size of the original games, because the allocated memory was something like 4 or 6 kilobytes.
Yeah, it was 2 kilobytes on the original launch games, but by the end of the lifespan, they got them up to 32 kilobytes.
Yeah, and they thought they wouldn't get much bigger than like 4 or 6. That's why they thought that was enough. But they ended up doing some kind of trickery, just like anything. Where like God of War 2 compared to the launch games for the original PS2, or The Last of Us compared to what they tried to do at the beginning of the PS3.
Yeah, they did the same. I always think of Neo Geo with this, because the original Neo Geo games were supposed to max out at 350 meg or something like that. Then they figured out how to do this data bank switching.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they could pile on multiples of whatever data they had. So later in the lifespan, they got up to 32 kilobytes. But the thing that's amazing about the Atari to me is that it started production in 1977. Basically with people just sitting in rooms hand assembling the things. And actually some version of it remained in production until 1992.
Yeah.
Official hardware wise.
The Junior. Yeah.
Which is bananas. It was, that it persisted for that long. Now, I think there were interruptions potentially. I couldn't really confirm that, whether or not there were interruptions in production, over the lifespan and Atari.
Well, the crisis, I mean, that's for another episode.
Yeah.
The video game crash of.
Atari being bought and sold, and the rights to Atari, or Atari as a company, kind of coming and going through different, changing different hands, through the course of the late 80s and early 90s. It's kind of amazing that it was produced for that long.
Yeah.
And, what I think is kind of interesting, and I've read a couple of books about this, because like Steve Jobs, for instance, started his professional career basically at Atari. Steve Wozniak helped Steve Jobs when he worked at Atari. So there were a lot of people who were around this thing kind of originally at the time, and I think it's cool the way that the software development sort of worked back in the day. So Atari was, basically one big cool swinging office, back in the day where all these guys worked together. And basically every game was made by like one or two people where they would say, they would pitch an idea to their manager essentially and say, "Hey, I have an idea for a game, and here's what I would like to do, and here's my idea."
Yeah.
And then they would say something like, "Okay, you've got 3 months to make that happen." And then one or two people would go off into their room with their computer and work for like 3 months, and boom, here's the game.
Yep.
And so that is sort of the way that software development worked. It wasn't like, I mean, at least what I've read about it, it doesn't really sound like there was a big
team of like 20 people.
Well,
like,
yeah,
sitting there.
they didn't product test. They didn't do it. They weren't, and they didn't troubleshoot and play test the thing, for months on end after the fact to make sure that everything was working. Like literally every game for the original Atari, they all have the Atari brand on them, but each one of those is like one or two people's little creation that they spent a few months to make.
And imagine how many people go into today's games.
Yeah. So I always think that that's kind of interesting. And, there's a lot of anecdotal stories about the old school Atari being like, kind of a party place to work. So apparently there was a lot of, marijuana and drug use back in the day and a lot of people who were young, single in their early 20s, fresh out of school, all of a sudden making a ton of money,
right?
And doing all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So some of the more interesting things are about that. And supposedly, everybody really likes Steve Jobs and and on and on. But one of the more interesting stories that I've read in the past is that, and I can't remember what game it was off the top of my head, but Steve Jobs was tasked with creating a game, and he was having a lot of trouble with it. And at Atari, this is how backwards things were, I guess, in the corporation, was that you would get a certain amount of time to create your game, but if you could meet some super strict deadline, they would give you like a bonus.
Nice.
So they incentivized you to push out the software as fast as you could, sort of probably regardless of the quality of said software. But in any respect, like Steve Jobs was having trouble, developing a game, and so he had Steve Wozniak help stay up late at night, and these two guys work together making a game. Steve Wozniak, of course, is the co-founder of, the guy that kind of helped build the original Apple. But Woz worked with him, for some time creating this game, sort of like thinking he was just helping a buddy out. And then Steve Jobs got this big bonus for getting it created in time, even though Wozniak did a bunch of the work. And Wozniak, according to his recollections of the thing, never knew that until years after the fact. They had helped Steve with this big project, and then Steve had kept all the money. And he said that's actually like one of the things that like later in life really stuck in his craw was Steve Jobs, keeping him up working late at night, thinking he was just helping a friend keep his job. He was actually helping his friend make a big bonus.
Yeah.
But
they both did all right. So
they both ended up doing okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just kind of funny. And then, of course, that's what led to the video game crash of '83, essentially, where things like...
too much, yeah.
Yeah, it was too much, pushed out too fast. And one of the problems, honestly, that everybody credits Atari with, or with the games in general, and I encourage anybody, if they don't know what I'm talking about, go back and look at the artwork of the original Atari games. Mm-hmm. They released comic books that went with the games. They had these stories. They had these fancy... illustrated covers, with these stories, and so you see this representation of a game on the cover, and then you actually start playing the game, and you're like, wow, this isn't really quite what was there. There was a disconnect, and so around '83, the customers basically just lost faith that anything that they were going to buy was going to be any good, and that's everybody credits E.T. That specific game.
E.T. and Pac-Man.
Yeah, E.T. and Pac-Man as being the cause of the crash. It was a bigger issue than that. It was just that people had been burned too many times buying expensive software for the thing.
And that one
just wasn't any good.
That one was pushed pretty hard, and that game was pretty terrible. It sold a lot, though. Like Pac-Man and E.T.
Oh, yeah. No, they're
sold a
ton.
Amount.
Yeah, I was at a flea market not too long ago, and I found a copy of E.T., and someone had it marked for like $100, and they were like super rare, game with a ton of history. And I'm like, no, that is a super common.
That landfill kind of jacked up the price.
Now the ones that actually came out of the landfill are, which go watch the documentary on Netflix if you don't know what we're talking about. But yeah, the ones that actually came out of the landfill go for a little bit.
Oh,
if
yeah.
they're authenticated. And
When they were selling on eBay, I almost bought one because they got down to about $30-$40.
yeah,
a
no,
piece.
I actually thought
They're going to
about
keep
buying one,
releasing
too.
them, by the way.
Yeah.
They have like thousands of
Yeah,
them.
I think they're still digging them up.
They're like literally, they said they were only going to release like 100 or 200 at a time, and they're just going to keep doing it every couple of years.
Yeah, I would actually. The big reason why I didn't pick them up, honestly, was because of the radiation and stuff from being
really?
underground with all the nuclear waste. And they were so dirty, they had to be like Geiger counted or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was just like, I don't know if I want that.
I don't
in my
know. Having an
house.
ET cartridge that glows in the dark might be kind of cool.
Yeah, except if it makes you glow in the dark.
Yeah.
You might change your mind.
True.
It's like that scene from Simpsons where it just bigs and he gets in his back. And he's
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is funny. Radiation poisoning. Ha, ha, ha. And then you watch Chernobyl on HBO, and then you realize this is not a freaking joke. It's a good series, by the way, if you're getting over. I know
Haven't
we
seen
talked
it.
about last time. Wife and I are still watching Battlestar. Still freaking love it. Just watch it. You people who stop
Yeah,
at the name.
stop being all judgy.
Yeah, stop being all judgy. If I could get my wife who likes vampire shows and Friends and Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec is pretty great.
Yeah, Parks and Rec is
Yeah.
great.
Parks and Rec
Yeah, I was
is-
about to say.
yeah, Parks and Rec is. I'm just saying that type of thing, and she's watching freaking Battlestar Galactica and like asking me every night, like, "Can we watch Battlestar? Can we watch Battlestar?"
Yeah.
But anyway, Chernobyl's really good too, but it's also pretty dark. Obviously, kind of know what happens. Yeah. So, what else we got, Michael? You got any other fun?
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of pretty cool peripherals that came out with it. I mean, we kind of already talked about the standard like joystick that came with it, but something kind of interesting is that it kind of became the industry standard. And it kind of actually worked with like the Commodore 64, the Sega Genesis, and the Master System. So
That's right. You can hook up your
Yeah.
Genesis controller.
That's
if
right,
you
you can
have if you have an Atari and a Genesis controller, you're good to go.
Yep. So that's kind of a cool little neat feature. They also came out with in '78 the keyboard controller. It's kind of more like a keypad in my opinion, not really the keyboard that we think of as today. And they had a couple games with that, Code Breaker and a game called Hunt Score.
Yeah, this is a big one that had all those peripherals.
Yeah, they had a trackball controller. There wasn't really much they didn't have. They had something called the Space Age joystick. That was probably one of the coolest things. It almost looks like a zapper gun, but kind of just it really looks like a gun. They had a driving controller that we kind of talked about that was packed in with the Indy 500. They had something called the Joy Board, which is like a balance board.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah, and you kind of stand on it, kind of like almost like a Wii Fit type thing. Nowadays, they kind of had I think a rockin' something controller.
People back then didn't worry about fitness.
Nah, all these next ones did terrible. By the way,
This is like, can
Exactly.
you not smoke in front of my baby?
I was
and
gonna
then
say-
everybody laughed.
exactly.
I'm actually kind of surprised that there's not an Atari cigarette holder.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like I think the Heavy Sixer actually has a cigarette lighter.
That's what those
built
grooves
into
are
the
for.
front of it.
Yeah, it's to grill some meat and also to dump your ashes in.
Yeah, they had one light gun called the Atari XE light gun. And I think people like this game called
It was
Bug.
a real gun. No.
Yeah, I never used
Yeah,
it.
I never
but
saw the light gun.
Yeah, it had a game called Bug Hunt that I've seen a few times.
Which interesting tidbit, a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Allow me for a second. Old light guns, like for old
Oh, yeah.
systems,
Mhm.
are amazing.
Yeah.
If you never have seen one, hit pause right now and Google image search Magnavox Odyssey shotgun.
Oh, okay. I
That
haven't
is
seen
that is a toy that could not be made today.
All right. Yeah, I've not heard of that
any
one.
of those guns. The
Yeah,
one,
it
the
is-
one for the Odyssey.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking
It
about.
looks like Dirty Harry.
Yeah, it looks like you're getting ready to go shoot some quail. It looks like a legit shotgun.
Because the Zapper was gray,
Yeah.
and then they switched to orange. But this is on another level.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the other one that will blow your mind is the Telstar TV Fun or whatever.
Yep.
And it's got like it looks like a 44
Black. Yeah, I've seen that.
6-shooter thing. That's
Little revolver. Yeah.
anyhow. Tangent. Ended. You can go back.
No, you're good. And the last one is probably the rarest of all the peripherals for the 2600. It's called the Foot Craze, and yeah, literally Foot
Hold on.
CRAZ.
Did someone look in my search history?
Yeah, you can Google this thing. It's kind of like the Power Pad, we'll say. It's kind of a predecessor to it. It just had like 4 little buttons that you kind of stand on and do. I think the games were called Jogger, which sounds awesome. You just jog around, and Reflex. So that was kind of the rarest. It goes for quite a bit of money, actually.
I bet.
Yeah, like last time I saw it, they never show up. I looked on Atari Age. Apparently, like around $500.
Wow.
So,
Jeez, foot fetishes, man. It's expensive.
Absolutely.
So my favorite peripheral for the Atari is the Starpath Supercharger. Because I was in a game shop several years back and bought a complete Starpath Supercharger set, the Supercharger and all of the games that ever came out for it. So I'm going from memory here a little bit. I think there's 14 of them.
Okay.
But one of them, so it's a.
Yeah, what does it actually do?
So the original Atari had like 128 bytes of RAM or whatever. Mm-hmm. So this is it's a cartridge that plugs into the Atari port, but it has 8 kilobytes of RAM.
Okay.
And this cartridge has a cable that goes over to a tape recorder, and it looks just like those tape recorders that you would have used in elementary school, when you were reading your books, like the read-along books or whatever. So it's just like one of those tape recorders, but the games are on tape cassette, on a regular tape cassette. And so the most famous of those games is Communist Mutants from Space.
Yep, sounds about right.
But perfect name for a Cold War era game.
Yeah.
But it would work.
Yeah.
But they would. If you listen to them on a regular, tape player, they're just like static and screeching sounds and all this kind of stuff. But
anytime you see a game that's on tape, it basically does it by noises and beeps and bops.
Yeah.
That is how the game is
it's
played.
all ones and zeros in sound form.
Yeah.
And but it's amazing because it much expands what the Atari 2600 was actually capable of doing. The only way I think really, going back, the only way back in the day that you could do it was actually to have, you bought the Starpath Supercharger by mail order, and it was like a subscription service where they would send you these tape cassettes. Like, I don't know if it was once a month or whatever. And of course it only stayed around for like a year or that kind of thing. But it's an interesting little bit of history.
It's kind of like also like Michael. It's like an expansion pack, but way better. It honestly it feels like a difference of if you can go back for your NES, buy a peripheral that was super weird and complicated, and then turn your NES into a Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Because it was that good. There's a video out there of you'd say Frogger, and the Atari version of Frogger looks like you'd expect. But then when you play it through this thing, the tape cassette version of Frogger is like...
It enhances it quite a bit.
Yeah, like a ton.
Yeah.
Like the detail and the music and everything else.
Yeah,
it's
crazy. Neat. And of course the Atari 2600/VCS was not. I always refer to it as the 2600 because that's what it was when it was my original console when I was a kid. But like the Commodore computers, like there were other things like some of the computers over in Europe, they were in Europe. The tape cassette thing was a big deal for games, and like a lot of people in Europe, like that's how they played their original games was off of video or off of tape cassettes, which I think is it's really funny to think about now. Like, you could take your Atari tape and put it in and record off the radio on your boombox,
Oh yeah,
or whatever. But the reason I think it probably never caught on so much in the United States is because if you had a dual tape cassette deck, you could rip your games.
Oh yeah, good point.
just like burning a CD
Copyright,
or whatever. Yeah, and so the copyright infringement was really big over in Europe because you could just get a tape cassette, throw it into your dual tape cassette and dub one off for your buddy.
Oh yeah,
there'd always be like I'm sure glitches and little things that would show up.
Dark Side of the Moon is a horror game. Yeah.
But I always think that's just hilarious, that you're gonna copy a game in a dual, tape cassette.
Just
deck.
think about how much though, you could kind of like. You could be like an undercover nerd where like everybody else is like, oh, what are you listening to? Like, just church music.
Yeah.
Really, it's a game where you shoot people and you blow stuff up and yada yada. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like it's the ultimate like nerdy thing that people couldn't wrap their heads around. Like, how is this audio tape playing a game in my basement on my dad's like messed up computer with this like what was that? It was the what is that? What is that one that they used in Europe all the time? That like what was
I think there's like the ZX Spectrum. They were all the old Amiga computers,
Amiga,
all that kind of stuff.
Yes, the Spectrum. Yeah, I've got a couple of those games, and you just feel like you got a cassette tape. I don't know how the heck I'm going to play this thing, but I should put it in there just to see what it sounds. It sounds pretty terrible. It's like high It sounds kind of like a modem from the 70s.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, but like my Star Pass Supercharger, I'm scared to death to actually take it out and use it because
I think it'll work.
Well, it might, but I'm so worried about the tapes breaking because they're so old.
Yeah.
But honestly, if it's like anything, you probably actually should use them.
No, I know what you're
then
saying.
Then it would make them maybe not break because the fragility and the brittleness is usually happens from not messing with them for a while. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'm giving you the wrong advice.
Yeah, but the other thing that I did want to mention too while we were talking about the Atari is so there is new modern hardware that plays original Atari cartridges. And Atari cartridges are kind of cool because they're cheap. You know, sometimes you can find them at garage sales or flea markets or whatever, and you usually get them for like
$1
$1.
a piece.
Yeah,
That's
or
pretty
cheaper.
standard. Yeah.
and you know, so that's the Retron 77. So Hyperkin made this thing that will play on modern. You know, has HDMI output, 720, blah blah blah. So you can play it on your modern displays. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, it's emulation, but it's also Atari emulation, so it's not like it's rocket surgery.
Yeah.
You know?
Some of those later models are a bit more expensive too. Like if you do want to buy a 7200, I think isn't it like $100 or something?
Yeah, I mean it depends on what you're buying and how complete it is and all the rest of it. The problem with the 5200 and the 7800 getting a little bit out of this topic is that the controllers are always broken. You know.
Yeah.
But the OG Atari, the controllers generally work, although the contacts in them sometimes will be bad, but you can take them apart and
fix them pretty easily.
Yeah, fix them pretty easily. There's YouTube videos out there that tell you how to do it.
Yeah, Atari Age or whatever.
And yeah, and like I said, even if you don't have the paddle, you can always use the Genesis controller or a Master System controller.
Yep.
So you know, you've always, you know, if you got the hardware that works, you pretty much can use it.
I remember when I was a kid, I think I didn't know this at the time, but I'm pretty sure that the dad who was the parent of the friend that had the Atari fixed the controller himself and used like PVC piping to fix one of the joysticks.
Oh, really?
Half the time, all you need is still wool.
Yeah, like I remember like the joystick plastic thing broke, so he just like made his own. I always thought like this is weird, it looks like a straw, but it was just because I think his dad like fixed the controller, which nowadays like that's pretty difficult to do. But that being said, there's a lot of aftermarket parts and things like that you can find pretty easily. I saw something, or it was kind of interesting, like the 5200, which again is not the point of our topic this time. It's the 26. But someone compared the 5200 to that generation's Wii U.
Oh, yeah.
And if you think about it,
pretty good, actually.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good
it kind of
because
is, yeah.
it plays Wii games, and the Wii was crazy successful. The
Right.
2600 was crazily successful.
Yeah.
And then it was like overpriced, didn't have a big library of games, was forgotten about.
People were looking for something different.
Yeah, not the best name.
It was enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, honestly, I was like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good comparison. So, yeah.
Especially after the crash, too. They really
Yeah.
shouldn't have kept it with like that.
The 5200,
2600.
I didn't own one until being an adult, but I still remember because I have one in box or whatever, and the box is, I mean, it's like the size of that table. It's a huge box. The console is like 3 feet wide. It's like 2 feet deep. I mean,
Isn't it all silvery looking?
yeah, it's black with like a silver top. It's got this weird holder thing on the back, so it's got this lid that flips up. Angry Video Game has a nerd, or
Has a nerd.
It's
has a
late.
nerd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Angry Video Game Nerd has a video where he actually puts beer into the
Oh, really? Yeah.
into the holder on the back of the console. So it's a console that you can actually put beer inside of.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah, I can just remember my neighbor
So
having
yeah,
a
the
5200.
5200, man. Like I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, I just remember my neighbor having a 5200, and he was really jealous of my NES.
Yeah, I mean the
it's
5200 had some okay games on it, but yeah, the controllers are always broken, always. Anywho, but I digress.
Yeah, no. So that was kind of the tidbits of the lifespan. Games, I didn't own one of these back in the day, but I sure as heck played it, and I played it off and on. Is there any games that stood out to you that you would
Space Invaders?
Yeah,
was the
I
one
mean,
that
Space
sold it.
Invaders. Yeah, Space Invaders is the one that really broke the Atari.
Sure.
Broke it out into mainstream life. So Taito, of course, made it in the late 70s in arcades, and then it came out in, I think, 1980 is when it
80,
released
yeah.
for Atari. But
Berserk
So it was like 2 or
another
3
good one.
years. Yeah.
There was another one.
yeah, the Space Invaders, man, I played a ton of Space
Yeah.
Invaders. Defender is the other, and then
Defender was
Combat.
good.
Yeah,
Defender was
and so
actually-
was Missile Command. I mean, those three plus Combat were kind of my
Yeah.
main jams, back in
Yeah.
the day.
Berserk, Adventure. I know I kind of randomly like Stampede. I already talked about that. It's there's enough out there that like, well, and also there's some adult games.
Yeah. So the Swede, what are they even called?
X-Man. Have you heard about X-Man?
I don't know about X-Man. There's like Custer's Revenge and all the they're like Swedish erotica games or something. I'm trying to remember the name of the publisher, but yeah, there are like X-rated Atari games. That is a thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's why they made YouTube or whatever. But it's you probably don't want to own any of these things. But it was just quite interesting that like anything, like
owning them now, I don't think. I mean, now it's just kind of like look at this stupid thing, but like who on earth ordered that back in the day?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Interactivity. This is back when your imagination
teenagers
was all they had, right?
Yeah. But that all goes back to
Shane like
the
that.
fact that later
Shane's got them all.
Yeah, later on legally they just decided that anybody on Earth could make any game they wanted to for the Atari and publish it. So Atari didn't have control over their own publishing rights.
Well, shoot, talk about we talked about it off air, but the Gemini.
Oh yeah, So another interesting, and this goes into legal stuff too, another interesting thing with Atari is the Atari components are so generic that how generic are they? They're so generic that you can actually build your own Atari and not break any copyright or any patent infringements, because everything that it went into the original Atari, you could basically buy from an electronic supplier or a Radio Shack. Yeah. So ColecoVision, they were a toy manufacturer. They made those little cool arcades from the late 70s and early 80s, but they made the ColecoVision game console. And they were so bold that they actually went and made an Atari 2600 module that plugged into the side of their system that played Atari games. So if you have a ColecoVision, you can buy the Atari module, and now you not only can play Coleco games, which are a little bit more advanced than Atari games, you can also play all of the Atari games, so which was a huge selling point. You just buy this little add-on. And so Atari actually took Coleco to court because they said, well, you can't make a thing that plays our games on your system. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we can, because everything that's in here is not your patent. And it went to court, and Coleco won. So Coleco won the right to make hardware that played Atari's games. Yeah. And the thing's legit. I have two of them. I actually have two Coleco arcade or Coleco consoles, both with Atari 2600 expansions. Nice. And it's just like playing Atari, except you're playing through your ColecoVision. And the other thing that happened is Coleco got so bold that they were like, we don't even need to make the expansion. We're just going to make it our own 2600. So they made a clone system that's still real hardware called the Coleco Gemini, and it looks like a little Atari, and the paddles are different. Yeah, but
I actually like the look of it.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and I have one of those too, and it plays 2600 games. It's not an Atari product, and Coleco was able to legally manufacture its own Atari.
Can you imagine? Nintendo would slit your throat.
Oh yeah, but it's interesting because by the end of the 2600's reign, Atari, or at least the people who owned the business of Atari, actually didn't own the rights to their own hardware or the rights to publish software on their hardware. And so that's when you came up with copyright protections and lockout chips and all the rest of it.
This is why.
Yeah, this is exactly why, is because everybody sat back and watched Atari lose their hind end over it. But the other interesting thing about Atari is actually Tengen, T-E-N-G-E-N.
Oh, yeah, Tengen,
or Tengen, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But Tengen is famous for breaking the code on the NES lockout chip so that they could copyright infringe Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which was another legal battle that Atari lost.
Yeah.
Because they stole code from the lockout chip of Nintendo's system to get around
they did lose,
lockout.
But they did sell a lot of games still for the
They
NES.
did. They sold a ton of them. Yeah. But it's interesting. They lost their own court case for someone doing that to them.
Yep.
And then when they did it to someone else, they also lost. Yeah. So from a legal perspective, Atari got hosed.
Either that or they got bad lawyers.
Bad lawyers. Yeah, Nintendo lawyers are just intimidating.
Yeah. And if you want to know more about this stuff, I watch Norm the Gaming Historian's videos on these topics. He has really good videos about this stuff.
Yeah. You got anything else, Michael?
I think I'm about tapped on the 2600.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so moving on.
Groovy!
It's that time again.
For
the
Handheld
Hollow!
All right. Our Handheld Hall is a segment where we just give a little love to our handheld games. This can be all throughout the library of any library. We just want to shout out real quickly a game. Might be on your radar. It's a great way to pick up some wonderful games on the cheap, usually.
Yeah.
But there's some great exclusives and things like that on the handheld. Let's go around. Let's do Michael first. Michael, what do you got for handhelds?
All right. I got on the Nintendo DS Namco Museum.
Yeah.
It's a nice little compilation. It's got your Xevious, Galaga, Galaxian, Pac-Man, Dig Dug 2, the Tower of Druaga, and Mappy. So all those games.
Mappy.
A lot of classic, great games on there.
Cool.
But yeah, lots of fun.
Okay.
Now on the DS.
Awesome. Awesome. Adam, what do you got?
I'm going to pick a Vita game just because we haven't given enough attention to the Vita, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Yes, now our fifth game that we've shouted out for the Vita, Uncharted Golden Abyss. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's actually the first game I beat on the Vita, I think, after I got my Vita.
Nice.
And it was kind of supposed to be the big system seller, I guess, of the Vita originally. And I feel like this game, it gets a little bit of hate because people compare it, I think, unfairly to Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3.
Oh, I thought it was the touch controls.
And because of the touch controls. Mm-hmm. The touch controls are not bad. I don't care what anybody says. They don't make it any worse of a game. And it's a pretty solid game. It's not as good as 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also on a handheld, and it's actually especially for the time that it came out, it is amazing that thing runs on a handheld.
Yeah.
But it's a good, solid, full Uncharted game on a handheld, and it's. I think it's definitely worth the thing. Don't listen to the anti-hype. It's actually a good game.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and one that's pretty common and easy to pick up. Nice. Uncharted. And for me, so I went and put all these in order. Thank you again to Nerdtron to give us all of our lists of stuff. And I have gone through. It looks like, we've double picked a handheld all the game probably about 4 or 5 times here. But no one's pointed that out, so thank you for not narking us. But I wanted to have these based on systems, so that way we can definitely check and see if we've ever shouted these out before. But I wanted to go through the Game Boy Color, the Game Gear. We only had one Lynx game so far, and also one N-Gage game, one Virtual Boy game, and one Neo Geo Pocket Color. But Switch is kind of coming up. We've got 8 of those, but basically it's the GBA, and the next one highest has like half as many. It would be the PSP or the Game Boy. I'm going to pick a Atari Lynx game, since this is Atari episode.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to do Zybots for the Atari Lynx. This game is great. The perspective of those kind of Contra 3D aspects of the old Contra games, where you're kind of shooting from the bottom of the screen, a la like Wild Arms, or not Wild Arms, what do I think? Wild Gun?
Yeah, Wild Guns.
Wild Guns. Mm-hmm. It's a really good port. It looks really good. The Lynx was on tap with the kind of the Game Gear. It actually was a little bit higher performance than the Game Gear, but didn't get as much development love as the Sega handheld. But Zybots for the Atari Lynx is a great arcade port. I was going either that or Shadow of the Beast. For the Atari Lynx was going to be my second choice, which they make a PS4 one of that. Did you guys know that? They made a PS4. You could import Shadow of the Beast. Shadow of the Beast
is a PC Engine game too, right?
Yeah. Huh. But anyway, they made a modern one for PS4, and it's region free. And if you want to import it for like $20 or less, if you're a fan of Shadow of the Beast, just know that exists if that tickles your fancy. That would be our handheld holo picks. Namco Museum for the DS, Uncharted Golden Abyss for the Vita, and Zybots, XYBOTS for the Atari Lynx.
So, moving on, we already mentioned early at the beginning of the episode we're going to be going to Mo Game Con.
Yeah.
Here,
St. Louis.
Couple months.
St. Louis. Yeah, a month and a half.
Month and a half.
Nice.
Jeez.
I need to get a hotel. Yeah.
I got my what is it called? The Airbnb already.
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
I actually
Nice.
need to book some Maybe I'll just sleep in my trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason we bring it up is because we're going to get to see our buddy Brett Weiss there.
Yeah.
And we also want to take a little bit of time to talk about his new book or books, set of books.
Yeah.
2-volume SNES Omnibus.
Yeah, we talked about the Omnibus Volume 1, but Volume 2 came out, I don't know, it was about a year later or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a physical hard copy of it, and we also have the PDF of it, and we've all perused.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just so it basically, the Omnibus is, he has every officially released title for the Super Nintendo, and I think when I read his preface in the book, he was originally just going to kind of put this in his other book series that he has out there already, but then he just found that, gosh, SNES kind of deserves its own thing, and he has enough connections with it, and the library is robust enough that he feels like there's a market for making this a true catalog that you could either peruse, that you could just find games that you are interested in, or just like read about the games that you remember loving, or you just want to be like, you just want to read it cover to cover. And I'll say the first volume, especially because I've had that for a while, it's a great, I just have it like in my bedroom if I feel like I want to read something.
Oh yeah.
I just like check it out. It's great. And he's got a few different contributors there. The layout, I think some titles he will give more than the normal, like, he gives a full page. Sometimes if it's a game that is one that is a little bit more prolific, he'll give a bigger spread, but he'll have screenshots. I love that he has ads. I always love ads. I was like,
the old ads and stuff that came out around the time, some tidbits about maybe development or what the game's known for or what it helped it innovate. And also, I mean, kind of the cool thing with it too is there's a lot of people in either industry positions or commentators that people sharing like personal histories with certain games or why certain games resonated with them as individuals. So it gives a nice balance between like the facts plus the
personal history.
Yeah, the personal history with each individual game, which I think is cool. That's a little bit of a unique perspective for an encyclopedic type publication like this. So. And then, of course, all the screenshots and everything else. You can really get a good sense for which games you'd like to play, maybe which ones not. And it also helps you identify things that, like, hey, I never heard of that. That looks pretty cool. Maybe that's something I should get.
Yeah. And there's something about, our audience and the physical collectorness and the fact we had an episode almost devoted just to magazines and Nintendo Power. This is just kind of right up the alley of people like us who just... hey, I don't really have time to break out this console. I have this, or you got to kid around. You got to be a good example and not just play a video game all the time. Because that's the funny thing is, like, when you tell people about the podcast, like, people instantly think, like, oh, playing video. It's like, no, I wish we played as much as we talked about the video games. But you almost get as much enjoyment out of reading something like this as you do playing the game. And I know that sounds funny, and Brett doesn't have his... I'm not getting a check from him or something about saying something like that, but I do believe that, like, when you have a really good book describing a game, it's kind of like being there. Yeah. And it also, when you just kind of flip, oh, I'll just read about one more game. Or I remember, and the second volume is a lot more sports heavy because a lot of the national basketball and this and that. Sure. So it's kind of neat that, you gotta, as the funny thing, they can't all be winners. You gotta kind of that was probably more challenging. That would be my question to him. I think we'll probably try to do an interview at Mo Game Con just live. We were going to try to have him on again as we did back in episode, I think it was like 19.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
But that would be one of my questions is, did you feel this one was more challenging because you had a lot more sports games you had to talk about? Maybe that was a little different. But just still like going in, I was like, oh, I want to check out what he thought about Sky Blazer or something like that. It's
you can use it for games or ones you want to find out. It's nice.
I like it. It's easy to read too. The formatting is something that you can't talk enough about. Sometimes you can have some fly by night creators trying to do something and create another book or something like that. But Brett's got the clout, man. He's been doing
it for a while.
He's been doing this a long time, and I think there's something to be said about the professionalism that he shows in this industry that oftentimes is just kind of has that quote unquote gamer mentality thing that was put on by the bigwigs and stuff like that. That really appreciate, and something that's great for if you're listening and you want to give a good, like a gift to somebody that likes video games, or the significant other that says you're so hard to shop for, that they kind of want to get you something that's just not some other disc-based game or another cartridge or something different. Like if I received this as a gift from somebody, I would take a step back and I'd be like, hey. So that's a great,
me.
Yeah, hey, and if you want to get this book, I guess there's a couple different places. You can go on Amazon and get it if you got that Prime stuff going on, or you can probably get it direct from his website is Brett Weiss.
BrettWeissWords.com.
Yeah. So his first and last name and words, and then you could check out the rest of his books there as well. He's got plenty of them.
Weiss is Weiss.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm sure, I don't know, can we talk him into, you probably get an autograph copy if you buy it directly from him or something. I don't know if that's true.
No,
Just
you
kidding.
can actually.
Really?
Yeah,
I think he will.
Oh, okay.
He will. I bet if you request that.
Yeah.
I actually,
He'll make it out to
when
Santa
I
Claus.
bought
I don't know,
directly
I shouldn't
from
say
him,
that.
I had him autograph both of my volumes to my son.
Oh,
So they
awesome.
both
There you
have
go.
notes to my kid on the front of them, which I think is neat.
Look at that. Perfect. So anyway, check it out. I don't think you'd be disappointed. We love having things like this to recommend to you guys wholeheartedly. And of course, thank you, Brett, for being a fan of the show. And we hope to see you soon in a month or two. And check it out. Support this this man of the industry here with this wonderful book. All right, moving on. All right, before we get into our emails and reviews, we could talk about real kind of quickly, since it's getting kind of late in the night. And just so you know, just for better or for worse, we thought we lost another episode. But luckily, thank God, Audacity has recovery. Unlike the other time we
Technology.
thought... Yeah, we were
sweating for a minute.
Technology struck again, but then it also saved us.
Oh, man, hour 46. And this is just, everything was fine. Everything was on the up and up, but for whatever reason, it just crashed. I think we were joking because we were talking about Windows earlier.
Yeah, I talked about Windows to a Windows computer, and it didn't like it.
Yeah. What's his name? Bill. Who's it?
Bill Gates?
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
He pushed a button.
I'm sure we're high on Bill Gates' radar.
Hey,
yeah.
I think so too. He's a listener, right?
Sure. Hi, Bill.
Bill G from the...
Yeah, hi, Bill. Linux
Yeah.
sucks. Windows is great.
Don't do it. So
I have a Microsoft phone. No.
No,
You're the only,
I don't. No, I don't.
Yeah, you're
Sorry.
the only.
that's why we can't call you.
Yeah, we're going to beat you up now.
So anyway, real quick, what we've been picking up, what we've been playing, we'll just hop through this pretty quickly. I will tell you, at a garage sale in the middle of picking up all this baby stuff, getting ready for the kiddo number 2, I picked up a lot that I didn't even think was good enough to put on our video. I made a video of an unboxing. And I didn't even put it up because it was just like a DS with 5 games. I got a DS Lite at a garage sale for $20. Came with a bunch of games. I kept them all in the bag, and I was gonna take it all out and check it out and see what I get. And I did get new Super Mario Brothers, and then 5 or 6 kind of girl games like Hello Kitty and stuff like that. So nothing crazy good, not even good enough for me to feel like I should upload it on YouTube, because I think it's not super great. But anyway, I have a DS now, and that's the way it happened organically. I always thought GBA, Game Boy Color, never interested in the DS. I still kind of think the dual screen thing is kind of... So I played it. So I actually played the DS, and I get it now. I could see why people really, really like it. It is super weird having 2 screens.
Yeah.
I think I would get to that. But I think I might go for, some cheap... kind of heavy, not cheap heavy hitters, but some cheap under the radar games. I might end up having a library of 10 or 15 just slowly if I get them real cheap. But I did play new Super Mario Brothers, thought that was great. Played a little Trials for PS4, the new Trials Rising. It's really fun. It's kind of like Excite Bike, but modern. If you liked Excite Bike back in the day and you have a PlayStation 4 or a Xbox One or actually a Switch, they make it on Switch too. It's a ton of fun. It plays a lot like a Trials game, but if you don't know what that is and you kind of like old school gaming, you'd love that. And then Hitman was the last game I kind of recently played. I didn't play the Hitman back on the PS2 days.
Yeah, you're talking about the new Hitman.
Yeah, the new Hitman.
Okay.
It's just titled Hitman. It was free, I think, at one point or something like that. I believe. The first season ended up being free on PlayStation Plus. I've watched the Giant Bomb guys play this, and they made it the game of the year 2 years ago. The same with Doom got like second place. So I was like, they picked this above Doom for a reason. And one night I couldn't sleep. I started watching them do these like it was called Merry Hitsmas instead of Xmas.
Yeah,
and it was like 4 or 5 hours worth of videos every year where they like play Hitman, but they do this in like a Russian roulette style where they put their head in a hat where you have to kill this person while wearing the priest outfit, but you have to use a hatchet, or you have to kill this person while wearing this and this. And it's like such a cool form of this game. And once you kind of watch them play the game, I ended up realizing like, oh, I'm learning how to play the game just by watching them, because the trial and error, it's like a puzzle game. Anyway, I finally played it, sat down and played it for about an hour and a half not too long ago within the last couple of days, and it is awesome. Like, nice. I could see why this was game of the year. So, yeah, if Hitman strikes your fancy, if these new modern games are just too difficult and too hard, like, it's just really funny, some of the stuff you can do. Like the way they put together these maps are just awesome. Like you can kill somebody, you know, in such a weird, intricate, crazy way. But check out those videos if that sounds interesting, or it sounds like it might be up your alley. But that's what I've been playing. What about you, Adam?
So I've been playing kind of a plethora of PC games as of late. But so I played like, I don't know, 10 or 12 different games. But the two main games that I've been playing are
give us the highlights.
The Talos Principle.
Oh yeah.
And so I've played it some in the past, but I did never beat it. So I've been playing back through it, and I'm past where I was when I quit the last time. Okay. But I'm actually playing through it with my 5-year-old. Which is kind of interesting because it's a very difficult,
it is
very cerebral, like puzzle game. You know, it's kind of like Portal, or Portal 2, but harder. And my son, it's amazing to me how smart he is. Because like he's not as good at it as me, but he's not much worse. Wow! And his biggest impediment is just being able to work the controls and everything else. So I've been doing these intricate puzzles with him as we've kind of been talking through them together, and it's been kind of a cool father-son kind of experience.
Is it kind of like, it's kind of like chess, maybe?
Yeah, kind of, because he'll be like, "What about this, Dad?" And I'll say, "Oh, that won't work for this reason," or "We have to get this to here. So what do you think we should do?" And then I have him explain. You know, so I'll posit him a question, and then he'll give me the answer back, and so I'm kind of working through it with him, having him help me think my way through the puzzles. Cool. And so it's been really fun, you know, doing it interactive with my kids. So we've been playing that game together, and nerd alert, the Steam Summer Sale is on. So I downloaded a new game called My Friend Pedro yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this game is awesome.
And I don't really understand the plot, so I won't, no spoilers or anything.
I think you could spoil this,
but like the game basically, you wake up and there's a banana floating in the air talking to you.
Yeah,
and
we've all been there.
We've all been there. So and basically you just have to fight your way out of this trouble that you're in, and you don't really know what it is. At least I don't at this point. But it is a super actiony 2D. I mean, it's a 3D game, but it's a 2D platformer that's based on bullet time, like a la The Matrix or a John Woo film or whatever.
Or John Wick. It's
John Wick.
Same perspective as Shadow Complex.
Yeah,
it's 3D models in a 2D plane. and you're going left to right.
Yeah, so you jump and you flip and you can shoot people while you're twirling upside down. And it is a wild game, but it is so cool.
Yeah, if you like twitchy stuff,
it's a really cool game.
Yeah, this would play well for old school gamers and stuff, because it's if you can't get a 3D control system, it's pretty cool. I want them to make a physical release of this.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I'll totally rebuy it if they put it out physical. It is coming out for Switch, and I think the other systems as well here pretty soon. I think PC was first, but like most of these kind of things, I suppose. But I've been playing that, and those are both really cool. I actually fired up Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon the other day and played some through it because I
got 100% on that sucker.
It's just fun. I've played through it several times. It's just dumb, and it's so cool. So that's still my favorite Far Cry thing I've ever done is still Blood Dragon. You know, if you like neon 80s, you know, synth and horrible 80s jokes. It's pretty tough to beat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mainly those have been the mains kind of that I've done here over the last couple of weeks.
Nice.
One more. Sorry.
Yeah.
Forza 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Horizon, Horizon, right?
Yeah, Forza Horizon 4. They actually have Xbox Game Pass for PC now. Mm-hmm. And so it's only like $1 for the first month or something. It's like in beta, quote unquote. I mean, sure, whatever. But it's only like $5 a month or something, $5.99. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But like, yeah, it's got all these great games on it, and so I've been playing Forza, and so I'm playing it on a 13440 by 1440 monitor, ultra, like everything on ultra, maxed out, 100 frames a second. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, and not only does it look really good, it plays like just real silky.
First time playing Forza Horizon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
how I felt.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Like, I really dig it. I feel like the characters in it are all like I don't like the character models and stuff. I mean, it's all really like, it's all millennial-ish.
Millennials.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's enough that you just kind of notice it. But I don't feel like
it's not overpowering. Like, I still think it would be cooler if like everybody was just had a little bit more 90s too. I feel like,
sure.
But aside from that minor gripe, like it is a way cool game, and there's like 8,000 cars, and and there's so much stuff to do.
Have you bought any on the auction block?
Oh yeah,
that's the way to do it. Is you buy them on auction. You don't buy them in the actual like game world. Yeah, and it feels like an eBay that's right there.
Well, there's 8 billion cars, and then there's like a zillion customizations for each car. Yeah. You know, you can do different paint jobs. You can download paint jobs that other people made for the cars that look cool. Like I did an original Xbox like Audi TT or something. But if you want like I said this when I originally talked about this like 6-9 months ago. Like if you want an old Jeep Willys, like the old original, you can drive a 40 Econoline van in this thing if you want to. Oh yeah, I mean but you're excited to do it. Yeah, I mean you can drive like the fastest, most expensive McLaren F1 all the way down to like a Toyota Love pickup.
Yeah. How do you like that? I kind of like the slot machine system for getting stuff. It kind of is exciting without being loot boxy.
Yeah, no, I mean it's cool. Like I said, it's a cool game, and it's a cool game that you can fire up, play for like 10 minutes, and kind of get what you need out of it, and then move on to something else.
Yeah. Have you played against the hydroplane thing? Or
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So one of the early races, you race against a giant hovercraft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty bananas. You know.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like an Uncharted made racing game.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, but it's an exceedingly polished game.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, it is dang good. What about you, Michael?
I recently I haven't done a lot of thrift store shopping, but I did stop by and I found a couple of PS1 games. One was Twisted Metal 4, which is kind of tough, and I didn't have it, so I started playing that a little bit.
Gotta be Axel.
Oh yeah. I was normally the police car.
Oh really?
Actually, yeah.
What's his name? I always
Siren Smitty.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Siren Smitty.
Yeah, Warthog. I would always be too.
Yeah,
But that, and then I've also been playing. I never really even opened up until just a few weeks ago. Diablo 3 on Switch. So I've been going
that's a
through.
Good one, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been going through. I played it on PS3 when it was out.
We need to play that online together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got it quite a while ago, and I just busted it out. So
what character are you playing?
Right now, Necromancer.
Sweet. I'm a witch doctor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. The witch doctor turns out to be horribly overpowered.
Really?
Yeah, it's really easy with the witch doctor.
I'm with the classic character.
Yeah.
Because actually, when I forgot the first one, I didn't have the expansion, so he wasn't in it, so I wasn't able to be the Necromancer. But
cool.
Yeah, cool story.
Cool story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, I just I've never played Diablo. So
oh, really?
I couldn't interject. I think it's cool. Dungeon crawlers are cool. I've played a couple here and there. But yeah, I've never just.
No, man, it's good. It's good. Just mind numbing.
Yeah.
Just chill out on the couch.
Yep.
And the Switch version is really good, actually.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really solid, and just to be able to take it anywhere. I've been playing it on my lunch at work, so it's always fun. Cool. And then actually, I've been playing some pretty garbage games. My wife kind of was looking in my room, and let's just say we like to watch The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
So If you're wondering who watches it, I guess it's me.
Yeah.
But there's apparently a Wii game that I had in the basement. I didn't even know, and she saw it, so she wanted to play. It's not good at all. It's terrible. It's I don't know what the rating's on it, but it should be like 2 out of 10. But we actually did play Family Feud also on Wii, and she's into more of the game show type games.
Yeah,
if you haven't noticed.
clearly.
But,
It's like my wife.
She's like, let's play Wheel of Fortune. I'm just like, all right. But she likes to,
Yeah.
she likes to hang out and stuff.
You need to play You Don't Know Jack.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's actually a tolerable quiz game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
Yeah, or those PlayLink games for PS4 I talked about recently.
Yep.
Like those are great because you could just play it on your phone and use your pictures on it or whatever.
Yeah, no, so yeah, that's about it. I've been busy with the kids a lot recently, so
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, cool. All right, so iTunes reviews.
Okay, so we got iTunes reviews between our last episodes and this episode, but they're reviews people click the stars. Unfortunately, they're all 5 stars, so that's great. But I don't have any to read out loud. So we always plug this on every show, but we really do mean it. 5-star reviews help us out a whole lot, and they get us noticed. They move us up in the search results. They basically help the podcast. And obviously, we're not doing this for any kind of money or anything. So if you do enjoy it, if we provide you any kind of entertainment, if you just want to pay us back just a little bit, if you don't mind going on to your favorite podcatcher, either iTunes or, Stitcher, whatever. Google Play, whatever you're listening to us on, just hit the little 5-star thing. That actually does help us a lot as far as new people being able to find us.
it makes us feel good too.
Yeah, and it makes us feel good.
Yeah, and real quickly, we'll go do one email. This one comes from Shane from Maine. Firstly, I wanted to thank you for introducing me to the greatest video game program in the history of human civilization. He must be talking about Bithead.
Yeah, Bithead.
Yeah, he said...
we're number 2. Yeah.
No, well, he says thanks for shouting him out because he checked him out and he said it's awesome. He's going through all his videos. So perfect. We'd love to give the love back. He said it was cool to look back through his videos and see his reaction to receiving the Video Game Dad of the Week award. He was genuinely thrilled. By the way, whatever happened to the VGDOTW? Yeah.
We kind of did that as a joke, honestly.
Yeah.
We were like Video Game Dad of the Week or whatever.
Every 3 weeks.
But we thought, but even when we did it, we were like, it's going to be really funny to do a Video Game Dad of the Week and only do it like once or twice or like once a year or something.
Well, and honestly, we kind of waited for someone. Maybe it's good, Shane,
for
reminding us.
Yeah, we might issue another one sometime.
Yeah, there's been a couple that we've actually been wanting to do, and again, we just try to shoot out sometimes it's just so hard to get an episode out. But he said you haven't given one out in a while. Anyway, in the name of Bithead, I would like to recommend a game for the Videogame Book Club. Of course, it has to be a shooter for the PC Engine. So, pulling off of his own top 10, I've chosen either Override or Soldier Blade. Did come out for TurboGrafx 16. Not sure if it's in the top 15% of the
there's
gallery.
nothing for TurboGrafx in the top 15. I'm going to vote Soldier Blade out of those two.
Okay, and then
Sounds good to me.
Terra Onion for the Mega SD. He ordered his.
Oh.
Do you know what that is?
I do. So this is an FPGA cartridge that plays... you can put Genesis ROMs or Mega Drive ROMs on it too, but it plays Sega CD ROMs through an FPGA in the cartridge slot of your Genesis. I didn't know it was
called the Terra Onion.
Terra Onion's the company that makes it. So they do.
Gotcha.
They have the Neo SD, which is like an EverDrive for the Neo Geo.
I got you now.
And then they have a couple of other things. They make the SD Super System 3 SD for the PC Engine TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
So that's the expansion that it's an FPGA that replaces the disk drive for TurboGrafx CD, PC Engine CD. So basically it plays the entire PC Engine TurboGrafx library. But the new one is this Genesis one, so it basically adds Sega CD functionality to your Sega Genesis through the thing. With that. It's nuts. It is crazy. Bananas, this thing. Yeah. So there's YouTube videos out on it. It's TerraOnion.com, I believe, if you want to learn a little bit more about it. But it is a real thing, and it actually looks incredible.
Yeah.
But it is a little pricey. I think it runs around $300 with to buy it and ship it.
We'll talk about it more. Thank you for bringing it up, and there's some more info if you need it, if that sounds interesting to you. But thank you. Yes, I think we will do a Video Game Dad of the Week soon. I'll just say we'll do it before the end of the summer. I've got somebody in mind, but we'll talk about it after the show, off the air. But thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for the email. And we'll add. Did we decide Soldier Blade?
Well, that's what I vote for. Sure.
Okay, let's do it. So we will add Soldier Blade for the TurboGrafx 16 to our Video Game Book Club. Thank you for the suggestion. But we better call it an episode. What do you say, guys?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sticking with us now for 46 episodes. I can't wait to talk to you again 3 weeks from now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Send us an email. Give us a review. Give us a like. Give us a love. Or, just keep listening. Whatever you want to do. Thanks so much, guys. Episode 46.
It's in the books.
Thank you.
Have a great day.